I have decided to post scary stories instead, cause it would seem nobody wants to watch my history stories. Hope you enjoy. Story 1. The Memory Thief. I first noticed something was wrong when Mrs. Chen couldn't remember her daughter's name. "I'm sorry, dear," she said, standing in her doorway across the hall, her usual warm smile faltering. "I know I should know you, but it's me, Mom. Lily." Her daughter's voice cracked. "I just saw you yesterday." Mrs. Chen's eyes, usually sharp for a woman in her 70s, looked clouded, lost. I watched from my apartment doorway as Lily guided her confused mother back inside, whispering reassurances that sounded more like prayers. That was 3 months ago. Now, half the residents in our building couldn't remember things they should. Important things. Mr. Rodriguez forgot he'd been married for 40 years. The Kowalski twins couldn't recall each other's names. Even I'd started having gaps. Nothing major, just a fuzzy spot where my high school graduation should be. A blank where my first dog's name used to live. The only person who seemed unaffected was Mordecai Finch in 4A. He'd lived in the building longer than anyone, 30 years, according to the super. Kept to himself mostly, though he was pleasant enough when we passed in the halls. Always carrying that old leather camera bag, always wearing the same brown cardigan that smelled of mothballs and something sweeter like old roses. I decided to investigate after I caught him outside Mrs. Chen's door at 3 in the morning. I'd gotten up for water, padding to the kitchen in my slippers, when I heard the soft click of a door opening. Through my peephole, I watched Mordecai emerge from Mrs. Chen's apartment, his camera bag bulging. He moved with surprising grace for a man who must have been pushing 90, slipping back to his own unit without making another sound. The next morning, Mrs. Chen couldn't remember her late husband's face. "I know I was married," she told Lily in the hallway, tears streaming. "I can feel it here." She pressed a hand to her chest. "But when I try to see him, there's just nothing." That afternoon, I knocked on Mordecai's door. "Thessaly," he said, though I'd never told him my name. "Please, come in." His apartment was a museum of other people's lives. Every surface was covered with photographs, thousands of them, in frames, albums, and boxes. The walls were papered with them, layer upon layer, creating a collage of faces and moments that seemed to shift in the dim light. "Tea," he offered, already moving toward his kitchen. "What are you doing to them?" I asked, not bothering with pleasantries. He paused, his back to me. You've noticed. Mrs. Chen can't remember her husband. Mr. Rodriguez forgot his anniversary. What are you taking from them?" Mordecai turned, and for the first time, I really looked at his eyes. They were ancient, tired, and impossibly sad. "Sit," he said gently. "Let me show you something." Against my better judgment, I sat on his dusty sofa. He retrieved a photo album, its leather cover cracked with age, and placed it in my lap. "Open it." The first photo showed a young woman in a 1940s wedding dress, radiant with joy. The next, the same woman holding a baby. Then another, the child taking first steps, going to school, graduating, getting married. An entire life documented in sepia and black and white. "My wife Rosalie," Mordecai said softly, "died in 1962. Alzheimer's. She forgot me first, then our son, then herself. By the end, she was terrified every moment, trapped in a world where nothing was familiar." I turned the page. More photos, but these were different. They showed Rosalie in her later years, and in each one she looked peaceful, happy, even. I couldn't bear it, he continued, watching her mind disappear, piece by piece. "So I learned to take the memories before they could fade, to preserve them. You're stealing people's memories. I'm saving them." His voice grew firm. "Do you know what's coming for everyone in this building? What's already started?" I thought of Mrs. Chen's clouded eyes, Mr. Rodriguez's confusion. "There's something in the water here," Mordecai said. "Has been for years. Slow acting, but inevitable. Everyone who lives here long enough." He tapped his temple. "The mind goes. Always has. Going back decades. The city knows, but the building's rent controlled, and the residents are mostly elderly, so they let it happen." He nodded. "I've been here 30 years, Thessaly. 30 years of watching neighbors fade away, forget their children, their spouses, themselves. So yes, I take the memories, but I preserve them." He stood and walked to a wall covered in photos. With surprising tenderness, he touched several. Mrs. Chen's husband, David, loved jazz, made the best dumplings in the city, cried when their daughter was born. He moved to another section, Mr. Rodriguez's wedding day. He was so nervous, he put his shoes on the wrong feet. His wife laughed so hard she snorted champagne. Each photo he touched came with a story, a preserved moment that would have been lost forever. "But they need those memories," I protested. "They're suffering without them." "Are they?" Mordecai asked. Mrs. Chen was going to lose David's memory anyway. This way it's preserved perfectly, not twisted by disease into something frightening. She feels the loss, yes, but it's clean. Simple grief, not the horror of watching a loved one's face become a stranger's. "You don't have the right." "No," he agreed. "I don't. But I've watched too many people die terrified and alone in their own minds. At least this way, something remains." He pulled out a newer album, flipping to recent editions. I gasped. There I was, in my cap and gown, diploma in hand. My high school graduation, the memory I'd lost. "You looked so proud," he said. "Your grandmother was there, in the 3rd row. She brought yellow roses, because they were your favorite." The details flooded back, not as memory but as story. I could see it, even feel the echo of emotions, but it was like watching a movie of someone else's life. I take them at night, Mordecai explained. When you're sleeping, dreaming, it's easier then gentler. The memory shifts from your mind to the photograph and I can keep it safe forever. Safe from what? He walked to his window, gazing out at the city. From the forgetting, from the fear, from the slow dissolution of self that's coming for everyone here. We could move. Everyone could just leave. With what money? Where would they go? These people have lived here for decades. This is home. He turned back to me. I'm offering a different choice. Let me take the memories before the disease does. Let them be preserved whole and beautiful, not twisted into nightmares. I stood to leave, my head spinning. At the door I paused. What about you? Who preserves your memories? Mordecai smiled, the expression infinitely sad. Who do you think was the first to drink the water? I've been taking my own memories for 20 years, storing them away. I don't remember my wife's face anymore, except through the photos. But at least I know she existed. At least I know we were happy. I left without another word. That was a week ago. Since then I've watched more neighbors begin to fade. The Kowalski twins sit together in the lobby sometimes, looking at each other with fond confusion, like strangers who know they should be more. Mr. Rodriguez hums love songs he can't name for a woman he can't recall. Last night I woke to find Mordecai in my room. I'm sorry, he whispered, camera in hand, but you've been here 3 years now. It's starting. I wanted to tell him to stop, to leave my memories alone, but I thought of Mrs. Chen, peaceful in her forgetting. I thought of Rosalie, terrified and alone in her own mind. Just, I said softly, just make sure they're beautiful. He nodded, raising the camera. They always are. The flash was brighter than the sun. This morning I woke with gaps. My mother's maiden name is gone. The plot of my favorite childhood book has vanished, but on my doorstep was an envelope, and inside, 2 photos. In the first, a 7-year-old me reads under a blanket fort, flashlight in hand, completely absorbed in a book about dragons. In the second, my mother signs my permission slip for a field trip, her name clear and preserved, Patricia Hartley. I know I should be angry, I should feel violated, but all I feel is grateful. Mordecai Finch is a thief. He takes what isn't his, preserves what should naturally fade. He plays God with our minds and memories. He's also the only reason any of us will be remembered at all. Sometimes when I pass him in the hall, he shows me photos, my first day of work, my college roommate's name, the taste of my grandmother's apple pie captured somehow in the warm sepia of an old photograph. Thank you, I tell him, and mean it, because the forgetting is coming for all of us. The water continues to flow, the damage spreads, and one by one we fade. But somewhere in apartment 4A, an old man guards our memories like dragon's gold, keeping them safe in silver halide and paper. When the last of us is gone, when the building is finally condemned and demolished, someone will find his collection. Thousands upon thousands of photographs, each one labeled with a name, a date, a story. We will be remembered. Mordecai Finch makes sure of that. Story 2. Night shift at the Butterfly Conservatory. The Hellenic Butterfly Conservatory paid $18 an hour for night security, which was $3 more than I made stocking shelves. That's the only reason I took the job. You'll be working alone, Dimitri, the day manager explained during my orientation. Midnight to 6 a.m. Just walk the grounds every hour, check the temperature controls, make sure no one breaks in. People break into a butterfly house, I asked. He shrugged. Rare specimens, some worth thousands. We had someone try to steal our blue morpho collection last year. The conservatory was beautiful during the day, a massive glass dome filled with tropical plants, flowering vines, and thousands of butterflies floating like living stained glass. But at night, with only the emergency lights casting green shadows through the foliage, it felt different, primordial. My first week went smoothly. I'd do my rounds, flashlight in hand, occasionally startling a nocturnal moth or two. The butterflies slept with their wings closed, hanging from leaves like tiny folded prayers. I'd check the temperature gauges, test the doors, then retreat to the security office to watch the monitors until the next patrol. It was on my 8th night that I first noticed something wrong. I was checking the tropical section when my flashlight caught movement near the passion vines. Not the gentle flutter of disturbed wings, but something larger, heavier. Hello? I called out, hand moving to my radio. Someone there? The movement stopped. I swept my light across the dense vegetation, seeing only leaves and sleeping butterflies. But as I turned to continue my patrol, I heard it, a wet, tearing sound, like someone peeling apart overripe fruit. I followed the noise deeper into the conservatory, past the koi pond and through the bamboo grove. The sound grew louder, accompanied by a rhythmic clicking. My flashlight beam trembled as I pushed through a curtain of hanging vines. What I saw made me drop the light. Where a chrysalis should have hung, something else was emerging. It had the shape of a butterfly's wings, but was the size of a dinner plate. The wings were translucent, showing a network of black veins pumping something thick and dark. The body was all wrong. Instead of the fuzzy thorax of a butterfly, this thing had segmented armor like a wasp. Multiple legs, too many legs, unfolded from its underside, and the head compound eyes the size of golf balls, reflecting my fumbling flashlight beam in thousands of of fractal images, mandibles where a proboscis should be, clicking and dripping with clear fluid. I must have made a sound because its head snapped toward me. Those massive eyes fixed on my position and the wings began to vibrate, not with the gentle pulse of a butterfly but with the aggressive drone of something predatory. I ran. Behind me I heard the heavy thrum of wings and the crash of something large pushing through the vegetation. I burst through the employee door and slammed it shut, fumbling with the lock. Through the reinforced glass window, I saw it land on the door, those impossible wings spread wide, showing patterns that hurt to look at, geometries that shouldn't exist in nature. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, it was gone. I spent the rest of my shift in the security office, eyes glued to the monitors, but I saw nothing unusual, just the peaceful conservatory, butterflies sleeping, plants swaying in the climate-controlled breeze. When Dimitri arrived at 6 a.m., I tried to tell him what I'd seen. Night shifts can play tricks, he said, not unkindly. The mind sees patterns in shadows, makes monsters out of moths. This wasn't a moth, it was endemic to this region, because we only house species from specific ecological zones. His smile was patient but dismissive. Perhaps you saw a large Cecropia. They can be startling if you're not expecting them. I knew what I'd seen wasn't any normal moth, but I needed the job, so I nodded and went home. The next night I came prepared. I brought a better flashlight, a camera, and a field guide to every species supposedly housed in the conservatory. If I saw the thing again, I'd have proof. For the first 3 hours nothing happened. Normal rounds, normal sounds. Then at 3:47 a.m., the temperature alarm went off in the South American section. I hurried over to find the gauges reading 95 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 degrees too hot. As I adjusted the controls, I noticed something else. The chrysalises hanging from the Cecropia trees were wrong. Where there should have been dozens, only empty husks remained, split open from the inside. A shadow passed overhead. I looked up to see them, dozens of the things I'd witnessed the night before, hanging from the glass dome like a nightmare constellation. Their wings pulsed in unison, creating a low harmonic that made my teeth ache. As I watched, frozen, more chrysalises began to split open. The creatures emerging weren't butterflies. They pulled themselves free with too many legs, wings unfurling to reveal patterns that seemed to shift and writhe. One landed on a nearby branch, and I got my first clear look at its full form. The wings were beautiful in the way a oil slick is beautiful, iridescent, constantly changing, hypnotic, but the body was an abomination, segmented like a centipede, with legs that ended in small hooks. The head swiveled 360 degrees, compound eyes processing thousands of images. When it opened its mouth, it had a mouth, not a proboscis. I saw rows of needle-sharp teeth. I raised my camera and managed one photo before they noticed me. The harmonic drone stopped. In the sudden silence, dozens of massive compound eyes turned in my direction. Then as one, they descended. I ran again, but this time, they followed. The sound of their wings was deafening, a thrumming that seemed to come from inside my skull. I felt the wind from their passage, saw my shadow multiplied on the ground by their pursuing forms. I made it to the maintenance tunnel, slamming the metal door behind me. The creatures hit it seconds later, the impact shaking the entire frame. Through the small window, I could see them covering the door, their wings creating a living, shifting mosaic. That's when I noticed the pattern. Looking at all their wings together, the random swirls and colors formed something larger, an image that hurt to perceive directly but burned itself into my peripheral vision. It looked almost like a face, ancient, hungry, waiting. I stayed in that tunnel until dawn, listening to them scratch and click at the door. When the first rays of sunlight hit the dome, the sound stopped. Cautiously, I peered through the window. They were gone. The conservatory looked normal again, peaceful, even. The morning butterflies were beginning to wake, stretching their ordinary wings in the golden light. But the chrysalises were still empty. I found Dimitri in his office when he arrived, showing him the photo I'd managed to take. He studied it for a long moment, his face unreadable. "Delete it," he said finally. "What? Delete the photo. Clock out. Your final check will be mailed to you." "You're firing me." "But I have proof." "Proof of what?" His eyes were cold. "That you saw exactly what you were supposed to see? That the night shift performed its intended function? I don't understand." Dimitri leaned back in his chair. "Why do you think we pay night security so well? To check doors? Monitor temperature?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're not security, Cassius. You're bait." "Bait? They only emerge for living prey, only transform in the presence of human bioelectricity. During the day, they're dormant, perfect, ordinary butterflies that tourists photograph and children chase. But at night, you knew what they were. We've known for 70 years. My grandfather built this conservatory on specific coordinates, following specific designs. The butterflies were just camouflage for what we're really cultivating, which is the next phase. What butterflies become when exposed to the right conditions, when the stars align correctly." He gestured to a calendar on his wall, covered in strange notations. "We're so close now. Maybe another month before the metamorphosis completes." "You're insane." "Am I? You've seen them. Tell me they're not magnificent. Tell me they're not what evolution intended before it was stunted by the wrong atmospheric conditions, the wrong solar radiation. We're just correcting the mistake." I backed toward the door. "I'm calling the police." "And tell them what? That butterflies turn into monsters at night?" That respected entomologist Dimitri Kostas, is running a cosmic horror show. He shook his head. They'll think you're having a breakdown. Night shift delusions. Happens all the time. He was right. I had one blurry photo and a story no one would believe. Take the severance, Dimitri said, sliding an envelope across the desk. Forget what you saw. And whatever you do, don't come back here after the next new moon. Why? What happens then? The final metamorphosis. When they stop needing chrysalises altogether. When the patterns on their wings align to open what should have opened eons ago. His smile was the smile of a fanatic. When our butterfly gods finally spread their true wings, I took the money and left. But I kept the photo. That was 3 weeks ago. The new moon is tomorrow night. I've tried warning people, but Dimitri was right. No one believes me. The conservatory remains open. Families wandering through. Children laughing at the pretty butterflies. I drive by sometimes. Park across the street at night. I can see lights moving inside the dome. Not flashlights, but the bioluminescent glow of things that shouldn't exist. The dome itself seems to pulse like something breathing. Tomorrow night, whatever they're becoming will complete its transformation. I don't know what will emerge from that glass chrysalis, but I know it won't be butterflies. If you're reading this, stay away from the Hellenic Butterfly Conservatory. Don't visit during the day, no matter how beautiful the photos look. And whatever you do, never ever take the night shift. The butterflies are not what they seem. They never were. Story 3. My daughter's invisible friend leaves gifts. The first gift appeared on Meredith's 7th birthday. A brass compass that always pointed toward our house. Look what Silverbell left me, she squealed, running into the kitchen with it clutched in her small hands. Who's Silverbell? I asked, still half asleep and nursing my coffee. Single parenting meant early mornings came, whether you were ready or not, my friend. She lives in the walls. I examined the compass. It was old, genuine brass with intricate engravings, the kind you'd find in an antique shop for $100. The needle quivered, pointing steadily toward our living room no matter which way I turned it. Where did you really get this, Mur? I told you. Silverbell left it under my pillow. She said I'd never get lost now. I checked her room. The windows locked. The doors also locked. We lived in a second-floor apartment with no fire escape. Unless someone had scaled the building, there was no way in. That night I installed a baby monitor in her room, just in case. The second gift came a week later, an old music box that played a melody I'd never heard before. Meredith said Silverbell left it to help her sleep. The tune was haunting but strangely comforting, like a lullaby from another era. What does Silverbell look like? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. She's sparkly, Meredith said, winding the music box, like she's made of starlight, and she has long silver hair that floats even when there's no wind. Is she nice? The nicest. She says she's been waiting for someone to talk to for a very long time. That night, I watched the monitor obsessively. At 3 a.m., Meredith sat up in bed, looking at the corner of her room. She was talking animatedly, gesturing with her hands, occasionally giggling, but the corner was empty. When I played back the footage with the audio enhanced, I could only hear one side of the conversation. The gifts kept coming. A leather-bound journal that replenished its own pages, a set of colored pencils that never grew dull, a snow globe containing a perfect miniature of our apartment building, complete with tiny figures of Meredith and me in the windows. I tried everything. Motion sensors, never triggered. Cameras, showed nothing. I even spread flour on the floor once, but found no footprints except Meredith's tiny ones, leading to exactly where she said she found each gift. Maybe she's really invisible, Meredith said one day, matter of fact as only a 7-year-old could be. Maybe, I agreed, exhausted from weeks of vigilance. The turning point came when I got sick. Really sick. The flu knocked me flat, and I could barely get out of bed to take care of Meredith. I lay there, feverish and guilty, listening to her play in the next room. That's when I heard the second voice. It was soft, melodious, like wind chimes made of crystal. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was gentle, maternal almost. Through my fever haze, I saw a shimmer pass by my doorway, a suggestion of movement, like heat rising off summer asphalt. When I finally managed to get up, I found Meredith in the kitchen. A full meal was laid out. Soup, crackers, juice, even my medication arranged on a tray. Did you do this? I asked. Silverbell helped. She said you needed to eat. I stared at the soup. It was homemade, still steaming, filled with vegetables we didn't have in our fridge. That night, despite my fever, I stayed awake. At exactly 3 a.m., the air in my room shifted. The temperature dropped slightly, and I smelled something like rain on summer stones. Thank you, I whispered to the darkness. The silence stretched on. Then, just barely audible, she needed a friend, and you needed help. Who are you? A longer pause. I lived here once, long ago. My daughter, she was Meredith's age when the voice faded. On my nightstand, a new gift appeared. A faded photograph of a young girl who looked remarkably like Meredith, standing in front of our building when it was new, sometime in the 1920s. I turned the photo over. In elegant script, Eleanor Silverbell Hartley, 1923. May she play forever in fields of starlight. Research at the library revealed the truth. Eleanor Hartley had died in our apartment during the influenza pandemic of 1924. Her mother, consumed by grief, was said to have spent her remaining years talking to empty rooms, claiming her daughter still visited her. Is Silverbell Eleanor? I asked Meredith the next day. Sometimes she's Eleanor, sometimes she's just Silverbell. She says names don't matter as much as being remembered. The gifts evolved after that. They became more practical practical. Groceries that appeared when money was tight. Homework help when I worked late. Small repairs done while we slept, but also protective. Once, Meredith's would-be bully came to school with his pockets full of spiders. Another time, a suspicious man following us home tripped over nothing and knocked himself unconscious. Silverbell doesn't like mean people, Meredith explained simply. Years passed. Meredith grew older, and I expected her to outgrow her invisible friend. Instead, their relationship matured. Silverbell became less playmate and more guardian, less imaginary and more present. On Meredith's 13th birthday, I found them in her room. Actually found them. Silverbell sat on the bed, translucent but visible, a young woman made of moonlight and memory. She looked exactly like the woman I'd imagined Eleanor's mother had become. Eternally young, eternally waiting. You can see her? Meredith asked, surprised. I nodded, speechless. Silverbell smiled sadly. You believed. That makes all the difference. Her voice was exactly as I'd heard it that feverish night. I stayed because I couldn't leave her alone. Any of them. All the children who lived here after Eleanor, but none of them could see me until me. Meredith finished. You have her eyes, Silverbell said softly. Her kindness, her light. I understood then. This wasn't just about Meredith needing a friend, or me needing help. This was about a mother who couldn't let go, who found a way to keep caring for children long after her own was gone. Will you always stay? Meredith asked. As long as you need me. As long as anyone in this place needs me. Silverbell looked at me. You're a good mother, better than I was. I held on too tight, loved too hard. I couldn't accept. You protected my daughter, I said. You helped us when no one else could. That's not holding on too tight. That's holding on just right. She flickered, became more solid for a moment. Thank you. Now Meredith is 16. She doesn't talk about Silverbell as much, but I still find gifts, SAT prep books that explain concepts better than any tutor, college brochures for schools with perfect programs we never knew existed, a laptop when ours died the night before, a big project was due, and sometimes late at night, I hear them talking, not the excited chatter of a child and her imaginary friend, but the deep conversations of two souls who understand loss, love, and the space between worlds. Last week, I found a gift on my own pillow, a silver locket containing 2 photos, Eleanor Hartley and my Meredith, side by side, identical smiles across a century. The note said simply, thank you for letting me mother again. I wear it every day, because some ghosts don't haunt, they heal. Some spirits don't frighten, they fulfill needs we didn't know we had. And sometimes, just sometimes, an invisible friend is exactly what a broken family needs to become whole again. Silverbell still lives in our walls, or perhaps it's more accurate to say she lives in our hearts, in the space between what was lost and what was found, between grief and grace. We're moving next year when Meredith goes to college. Part of me worries about leaving Silverbell behind, but Meredith isn't concerned. She goes where she's needed, she told me. There will be other children, other mothers who need help. That's what love does. It stays and helps, even when it hurts. I think Eleanor Hartley would have been proud of the woman her mother became, even if that becoming took a century and existed between life and death. And I know I'm proud of my daughter, who saw loneliness and answered it with love, who accepted the impossible as easily as breathing. The gifts still come. They always will, as long as someone remembers to believe in the kindness of spirits who refuse to stop caring. Some hauntings are blessings in disguise. Ours certainly was. Story 4. The tenant in apartment 6B. I inherited the building from my uncle, a 6-story walk-up in Queens that had seen better days. Uncle Giannis had owned it for 30 years, and his record-keeping was a disaster. Handwritten ledgers, some in Greek, receipts stuffed in shoeboxes, and a tenant list that hadn't been updated since 2015. Just collect the rent, and don't ask questions, he'd told me the last time I saw him. Building runs itself, but I was young, ambitious, and determined to turn the property around. I started by going unit by unit, introducing myself as the new landlord, updating contact information. Most tenants were happy to meet me. Elderly couples who'd lived there for decades, young professionals drawn by the below-market rent, families making do in the cramped but affordable spaces. Then I got to 6B. According to Uncle Yanis's records, the tenant was listed simply as J. Petrov, D. Not Disturb. The rent hadn't been paid in 7 months. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, announced myself as the landlord. Still nothing. They keep weird hours, Mrs. Dominguez from 6A told me. Never see them, just hear footsteps sometimes, and crying. Crying. She crossed herself. Young woman, sounds like. But Mr. Yanis, he told us not to worry about 6B. I tried calling the number on file. Disconnected. I slipped notices under the door, friendly at first, then formal warnings. They disappeared, but no one contacted me. After 2 weeks, I decided to use my key. The smell hit me first. Not decay, but something chemical and sharp, like industrial cleaner mixed with fierce sweat. The apartment was dark, heavy blankets nailed over every window. As my eyes adjusted, I saw the locks, dozens of them, lining the inside of the door. Deadbolts, chains, sliding bolts, all locked from the inside. How did my notices get taken if no one could leave? Hello, I called out. Mr. Petrov, I'm the landlord. I need to speak with you. A sound from the back bedroom, shuffling, whispers, then silence. I walked deeper into the apartment. The living room was bare, except for a mattress on the floor and empty food containers. Roach Motels lined the walls. The kitchen was worse, the refrigerator unplugged and duct taped shut, the stove removed entirely, leaving gas pipes capped and sealed. In the hallway I found the photographs, dozens of them taped to the walls. All of the same young woman, early 20s, dark hair, wide frightened eyes. Some showed her smiling, clearly before whatever happened. Others showed bruises, split lips, eyes vacant with trauma. The bedroom door was cracked open. I pushed it wider. She was huddled in the corner, arms wrapped around her knees, alive but barely. Her hair was matted, clothes filthy, wrists raw with old ligature marks. When she saw me, she scrambled backward, pressing herself against the wall. "Please," she whispered in accented English. "Please, I be good. I no trouble. I'm here to help," I said, pulling out my phone. "I'm calling the police." "No," she lunged forward, grabbing my wrist with surprising strength. "No police. He kill me. He kill my family." Who will kill you?" "Jovan. He own me. Bought from my country. Said I work massage parlor, but..." She started crying. 3 years. 3 years in this place. My hands shook as I dialed 911, but she was right. This needed to be handled carefully. I called my cousin instead, Sophia, who worked with trafficking victims. "Keep her calm," Sophia instructed. "Don't let her know police are coming. They need to coordinate with federal agents. These rings, they're connected. Dangerous." For the next hour I sat with the woman, Anna. She finally told me. Anna from Moldova, promised restaurant work in America, sold instead into slavery. She spoke in fragments, jumping between past and present, fear and memory blending together. "Jovan, bring men, many men, all day, all night. Then one day, he just stopped coming, stopped bringing food. I think maybe he dead, maybe arrested, but I too scared to leave. He say he watching always. Say if I run he send video to my family, kill my little sister. How long since he stopped coming? Maybe 4 months. I count sunrises through crack and blanket. 4 months. Around the time Uncle Giannis's health took a bad turn. When the police arrived, quietly, professionally, they found more than just Anna. Hidden cameras throughout the apartment, all disabled. A locked closet full of other women's belongings, IDs, passports, jewelry. Anna wasn't the first, but she was the last. The investigation revealed the horrifying truth. Jovan Petrov had died in a car accident 7 months ago. For 3 months, Anna had been locked in the apartment with his corpse 2 buildings over, too terrified to leave, surviving on whatever food had been left behind. When that ran out, she'd started rationing, then starving. But here's what haunts me. Uncle Giannis knew. Among his papers, investigators found receipts, payments from Petrov far exceeding the listed rent, notes in Greek that, when translated, referenced the girl in 6B, and keeping quiet. My uncle, the man who taught me to ride a bike, who gave me candy every Sunday after church, had been taking money to let a woman be tortured in his building. Anna survived, physically at least. Sophia's organization got her into protective housing, therapy, eventually helped her testify against the trafficking ring that had enslaved her. 11 other women were rescued because of her bravery. She even got to video call her sister back home, both of them crying for an hour straight. But I couldn't stop thinking about the locks. All those locks on the inside of the door. Anna told the police she'd installed them herself after Petrov died, terrified his associates would come looking. She'd learned to pick the exterior lock to grab my notices. The few times hunger overcame fear, but always rushed back inside. Was like being buried alive, she told me during one of her police interviews. But buried was safer than what outside. I gutted apartment 6B after the investigation closed, tore it down to the studs, rebuilt it completely. New walls, new floors, new everything. But sometimes, when I'm doing maintenance in the building, I still smell that chemical cleaner mixed with fear. Mrs. Dominguez doesn't live in 6A anymore. She couldn't handle being next door to where it happened, she said. The crying through the walls. She'd thought it was ghosts, or maybe someone watching sad movies. The idea that it was real, that she could have helped but didn't. We all knew something was wrong, she told me before moving out. But Mr. Giannis said not to worry, and we trusted him. God forgive us, we trusted him. The building is different now. I installed security cameras, better lighting, created an anonymous tip system for tenants to report concerns. I partnered with Sophia's organization to provide trafficking awareness information in multiple languages. 6B is now a discounted unit for women transitioning out of shelters. But late at night when I'm reviewing applications or fixing leaky pipes, I think about all the buildings in this city, all the locked doors, all the landlords who don't ask questions. Anna testified that she wasn't the only property Petrov used. There were other apartments, other buildings, other women locked away while people collected rent and looked the other way. Most were never found. The ring moved them frequently, except for Anna. Petrov had grown fond of her, wanted to keep her close. His fondness was her prison. My uncle's greed was her jailer. I found one last thing in Uncle Giannis's papers, after everything was over. A letter, never sent, dated a week before his death. I am damned. damned. The girl in 6B, I could have saved her years ago, but the money, I told myself I didn't know for certain, told myself it wasn't my business. Now I hear her crying through my cancer, through my morphine dreams. God forgives many things, but not this. Not looking away when you could have looked closer. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her. The letter ended there. I gave it to Anna during one of our last meetings. She read it quietly, then folded it carefully. Sorry doesn't unlock doors, she said, but at least he knew. At least at end he knew what he did. She works with Sophia's organization now, using her story to help identify and rescue others. She saved dozens of women, she tells me. Girls who were locked away like she was, invisible in plain sight. People think trafficking is like movies, she says in her presentations. White vans, kidnapping, but mostly is like me. Locked doors in regular building, regular people not asking questions. Is not dramatic, is just evil dressed like everyday life. I still own the building, still collect rent, fix pipes, deal with everyday landlord problems, but I ask questions now. I pay attention. When tenants go quiet, when rent patterns change, when something feels wrong, I investigate, because somewhere in this city, in buildings just like mine, there are doors that lock from the outside, and nightmares dressed as normal apartments. There are Uncle Yanis's taking money to look away, and Anna's too terrified to scream for help. The tenant in 6B taught me that the real horror isn't in abandoned houses or dark forests. It's in the occupied units we choose not to think about. The suffering we pretend not to hear through thin walls. The evil that pays its rent on time and counts on our silence. I think about Anna often, how she survived. Not just the trafficking but the abandonment. An entire building of people who heard her crying and did nothing. A landlord who took money to keep her cage secure. A system that made her invisible. She's visible now, fierce and unbroken despite everything. She stands in front of rooms full of people and makes them see what they'd rather ignore. Every locked door could be a prison, she tells them. Every quiet tenant could be screaming inside. You don't need to be hero, just need to look, just need to care. Last month she called me. They'd found another girl, locked in a basement apartment in Brooklyn. The landlord claimed he didn't know, just collected rent through a slot in the door. The girl had been there 2 years. Thank you, Anna said, for believing me, for not being like Uncle. But I wonder how many times I walked past 6B during visits to Uncle Yanis. How many times I heard something and dismissed it. How many chances I had to be better than him and failed. The building runs differently now, not by itself, not on autopilot or willful blindness. It runs on attention, on giving a damn, on remembering that every door hides a human story, and some of those stories are nightmares that need ending. Apartment 6B is occupied again. A young woman named Kazia, referred by Sophia's organization. She's studying to be a social worker. Sometimes I see her in the hallway and think of Anna, of all the women who suffered in that space. But Kazia painted the walls bright yellow. She grows plants in every window, plays music that drifts into the hallway. She's reclaiming the space, making it somewhere healing can happen instead of harm. Places aren't evil, she told me once, just people who use them. She's right, but I still double check her locks sometimes, making sure they all work from the inside, making sure no one's ever trapped again on my watch, because the real horror of 6B wasn't the trafficking or the torture or even my uncle's complicity. It was how ordinary it all seemed from the outside. Just another apartment in another building in a city full of closed doors and averted eyes. Now I make sure to look, to see, to ask the questions nobody wants to answer. It's the least I can do for the tenant in 6B. All of them, past and future. The ones we failed and the ones we still might save. If we just remember to give a damn about what happens behind closed doors. Story 5. Emergency alert. Do not look at the moon. The first alert came at 11:47 p.m., jolting me awake with that horrible emergency broadcast sound. Emergency alert. Do not look at the moon. Remain indoors. Close all blinds and curtains. This is not a test. I sat up in bed, fumbling for my glasses. Outside I could hear car alarms going off, dogs barking. My phone buzzed again. Emergency alert. Looking at the moon will cause permanent biological changes. Seek immediate shelter. Avoid all windows. What the hell? I muttered, stumbling to my window. My hand was on the blinds when my roommate Kai burst through my door. Astrid, don't. They tackled me away from the window. Didn't you see the alerts? It's got to be a hoax. Check social media. Check the news. This is real. I grabbed my phone. Every platform was exploding. Shaky videos of people convulsing in the streets. Government officials in hazmat suits. Scientists screaming about cosmic radiation, biological contamination, evolved pathogens, and pictures of the moon. It looked wrong. Instead of its familiar gray-white surface, it pulsed with bioluminescent veins like a massive organ. Colors that shouldn't exist rippled across its surface. Even in the photos, looking at it made my eyes water. Jesus Christ, I whispered. My mom, Kai said suddenly. She walks her dog every night at midnight. She won't have seen the alert. They called frantically. No answer. Their mom lived 6 blocks away. We have to go get her, Kai said. Are you insane? The alert said, I'm not leaving her out there. I couldn't let them go alone. We grabbed everything we could think of. Ski goggles, scarves to wrap around our faces, hoodies with the hoods pulled tight. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. The moment we stepped outside, we knew something was catastrophically wrong. The moon moonlight was different. Instead of pale white, it was a sickly pearl color that shifted like oil on water. Where it touched bare skin, people were changing. A woman stood in her driveway, face tilted to the sky. Her skin rippled like water, structures moving beneath it. As we watched, her fingers began to elongate, joints adding themselves with wet popping sounds. She didn't scream. She laughed, a sound like wind chimes made of bone. "Don't look up," Kai whispered. "Just keep your eyes on the ground." We ran. Around us, the city was transforming. Those who'd looked at the moon were in various stages of change. A man's eyes had multiplied, covering his forehead like a spider's. A teenager's mouth had split vertically, revealing rows of teeth that spiraled down her throat. They moved wrong, joints bending in new directions, heads rotating too far, and they were all staring at the sky, rapturous. "There!" Kai pointed to their mom's house. The front door was open. We found her in the backyard, her terrier whimpering at her feet. She stood perfectly still, bathed in that awful light. "Mom?" Kai approached slowly. "Mom, we need to go inside." She turned. Her face was still mostly human, but her eyes had changed. The irises had expanded to fill the entire eye, and within them I could see the moon's surface reflected in impossible detail. Not just reflected, alive, moving, showing me craters that breathed and canals that pumped with luminescent fluid. "Oh, Kai," she said, her voice harmonizing with itself. "You have to see. You have to understand. It's not infection, it's invitation. Mom, please, we were wrong about everything. The moon isn't dead. It never was. It's been waiting, gestating, preparing." She laughed, that same wind chime sound, "and now it's ready to share." She lunged forward, faster than any human should move. Her hands, fingers now double-jointed and tipped with what looked like sensory organs, reached for Kai's face. "She wants you to see," she sang. "The moon wants you to know." I grabbed a garden rake and swung it, knocking her aside. She hit the fence and crumpled, still laughing. "I'm sorry," Kai sobbed. "I'm so sorry, Mom." We ran back home, Kai's mom's laughter following us. By now the streets were chaos. The changed were trying to force others to look up, holding their eyes open, turning their faces to the sky. Those who resisted were torn apart by hands that had become something else. We made it home, slamming the door behind us. I nailed blankets over every window, while Kai sobbed on the couch. The power went out at 2 a.m. In the darkness we could hear them outside, singing. All the changed, harmonizing in frequencies that made my teeth ache. They sang about the beauty of transformation, about the glory of the new moon's gift. "It's a parasite," I said. "Some kind of cosmic parasite that's using the moon to reproduce." Kai finished. "The moon's not reflecting light anymore. It's projecting something, rewriting our DNA just through visual contact." My phone, down to 12% battery, buzzed with another alert. "Military mobilizing. Remain indoors. Transformation appears irreversible. Protect your eyes at all costs." Then another. "If family members are affected, do not attempt rescue. They are no longer human." We spent the night huddled together, listening to the world change outside. Gunshots occasionally, screams frequently, and always that singing. When dawn came, we thought we were safe. Surely sunlight would help. Surely the moon's influence would fade. But the changed had learned. They stood in our front yard, dozens of them, holding mirrors. As the sun rose, they angled them to catch the moonlight that still lingered in the sky, reflecting it toward our house. "They're trying to force us to see," Kai whispered. One of them was Kai's mom. Her transformation had progressed. Her neck had elongated, allowing her to turn her head 360 degrees. Extra eyes had opened along her throat. Her fingers had become like fiber optic cables, glowing with that same pearl light. "Kai, honey," she called, her voice now a symphony of tones. "Don't you want to understand? Don't you want to be more than this limited flesh?" "That's not my mom anymore," Kai said, tears streaming. "My mom is dead." "No, baby, I'm more alive than ever. I can see colors that don't have names. I can hear the moon's heartbeat. I can taste time itself." She pressed against our front door. "Let me show you. Let me give you this gift." The door began to crack. We retreated to the basement, the only place with no windows. In the darkness, we could hear them flooding into our house above, searching. My phone had one last alert. "Nuclear response authorized. Attempting to destroy moon. Seek deepest shelter possible. They're going to nuke the moon." Kai gasped. "What else can they do?" "It's the source." We felt the rumble before we heard it. The entire house shook as humanity threw its most powerful weapons at the thing that had been our companion for millennia. Then, silence. We waited hours before emerging. The house was empty, the changed gone. Cautiously, we peered outside through a crack in the boarded windows. The sky was different. Where the moon should have been, there was now a spreading cloud of luminescent debris. Fragments of the moon, each glowing with that same bioluminescent pulse, were falling to Earth like seeds. "Oh God," I whispered. "We didn't destroy it, we spread it." The fragments hit the atmosphere and burst into clouds clouds of glowing spores. They drifted down like snow, each speck carrying the moon's gift. Where they landed, plants began to twist and change. Animals convulsed and transformed. The very ground pulsed with new life. And the changed, those who'd looked at the moon, stood in the streets with their arms raised, welcoming the spores into their transformed bodies. It was never about the moon itself, Kai said. It was just the delivery system, the incubator. My phone, miraculously still clinging to life, showed one final message. Not an official alert this time, but a text from a number I didn't recognize. Thank you for resisting. Resistance creates biodiversity. The new ecosystem needs predators as well as prey. Enjoy your new role. Outside, the change began to sing again, but now their song was different. Hungry. We need to run, I said. Where? The spores are everywhere. They were right. Through the cracks in our defenses, we could see the glowing snow falling steadily. Soon it would find its way inside. Soon we'd have to choose. Transformation or something worse. The bunker, I said suddenly. My dad's old fallout shelter. It's sealed, has its own air filtration. It was our only chance. We wrapped ourselves in everything we could find. Made makeshift masks from duct tape and cloth. The moment we stepped outside, we could feel the spores trying to penetrate our defenses, seeking bare skin, seeking our eyes. The changed watched us run. They didn't chase immediately. They knew time was on their side. We made it to the shelter just as our makeshift protection began to fail. I could feel the spores burning through the tape, seeking contact. We tumbled inside and sealed the door just as the first spore touched my hand. The skin bubbled and changed color, but we'd cut off exposure in time. I still had my mind, mostly. That was 3 days ago. We're safe in here for now. The shelter has food, water, filtered air, but we can't stay forever. And outside, the world is transforming into something unrecognizable. Through the periscope, we can see them. The changed are building things, structures that pulse with bioluminescent patterns, growing from the ground like living architecture. They've stopped looking human entirely now. There's something new, something that belongs in this new world. The moon spores are creating, and sometimes, when I look at my hand where the spore touched it, I swear I can feel the moon's heartbeat, calling me, inviting me to join the new ecosystem. Kai says we should wait, that maybe the government will find a solution, that maybe this can be reversed. But I've seen the truth in the patterns the spores make as they fall. This isn't an invasion, it's an evolution, and we're the ones being left behind. The changed aren't singing anymore. They're building, preparing. Soon this shelter will be the only unchanged place in a world remade. I don't know how much longer we can hold out. My hand throbs where the spore touched it, and sometimes I catch myself humming their songs. Don't look at the moon, the alert said, but the moon has already looked at us, and it found us wanting. If you're reading this, if you're still human, still unchanged, I'm sorry. We should have looked away sooner. We should have never looked up at all. The moon was never ours to admire. We were always its to transform. Story 6. The Inheritance Calculator. The app had 4.8 stars and over 2 million downloads. Inheritance Calc, when will you inherit? The description read, using advanced actuarial data and proprietary algorithms, calculate the statistical likelihood of inheritance timelines. Plan your financial future with confidence. My coworker Priya showed it to me during lunch break. It's morbid, but kind of fascinating, she said, typing in her data. Look, it says I'll likely inherit from my parents when I'm 67. That's actually pretty accurate based on their health. I downloaded it out of curiosity. The interface was simple. You input your details, and those of potential benefactors. Age, health conditions, lifestyle factors, relationship to you. The algorithm did the rest. I entered my grandmother's information first. She was 89, had diabetes, lived alone. The app calculated. Estimated inheritance in 6-8 months. Confidence level, 87%. That seemed specific, but grandma was getting frail. It wasn't unreasonable. Then just for fun, I entered my wealthy uncle Silas. He was only 54, in perfect health, marathon runner. The app spun its calculation wheel. Estimated inheritance in 3 weeks. Confidence level 94%. That's weird, I muttered. What? Priya asked. It says my uncle will die in 3 weeks. He's super healthy. She laughed. Algorithm must be glitching. Mine seems accurate though. My parents are both in their 70s with health issues. I forgot about it until my phone rang at 2 a.m. 3 weeks later. Uncle Silas had been killed in a hit and run while on his morning jog. The driver was never found. My inheritance was $400,000. I stared at the app on my phone, my hands trembling. Coincidence? It had to be, but the confidence level had been 94%. The timeline, exactly right. Over the next few days, I became obsessed. I input everyone I could think of. Most calculations showed expected results. Elderly relatives with 5 Heine's 10-year estimates, younger ones with 40-50 years. Normal actuarial projections. But then I entered my boss, Malcolm, 58 years old, mild hypertension, workaholic. I wasn't in his will, but the app had an option for potential beneficiaries based on company policies. Estimated benefit payout in 11 days. Confidence level 91%. I watched Malcolm like a hawk for the next week. He seemed fine, stressed as usual but healthy. On day 9, he mentioned feeling under the weather. Day 10, he called in sick. Day 11, his wife called to tell us he'd died of a sudden brain aneurysm. The company life insurance policy paid out $50,000 to each employee who'd been there over 5 years. This is insane, I told Priya. The app, it knows. Don't be ridiculous, she said, but I could see doubt in her eyes. It's just statistical analysis. Actuaries predict death all the time for insurance companies. With 94% accuracy down to the week, she didn't answer. I started researching the app. The developer was listed as Mortem Dynamics LLC, but I couldn't find any information about the company. No website, no registration records, no team members on LinkedIn. The app had appeared on stores 6 months ago and spread through word of mouth. In online forums, I found others who'd noticed the pattern. Users reporting impossible accuracies, predictions that seemed statistically impossible but kept coming true. And then the darker threads. My brother was supposed to inherit in 3 years, one user wrote. I showed him the app as a joke. The next day it updated to 2 weeks. He was dead in 13 days. Don't share your adults, another warned. Every time someone sees their death prediction, it accelerates. The app makes it happen. It's not predicting, someone else posted. It's scheduling. I stopped using the app, deleted it from my phone, but the damage was done. I'd already entered my parents, my siblings, my extended family. I'd seen their numbers. My phone buzzed. A notification, even though I deleted the app. Inheritance calc update. New prediction available for user Thomas Vance, UU. My blood ran cold. I hadn't entered myself as a beneficiary of anyone, but somehow I was now in the system. Against every instinct, I reinstalled the app and checked. Estimated inheritance, $2.7 million from Eliza Vance, mother. Timeline, 72 hours. Confidence level 98%. My mother was 52 and healthy. We'd had dinner the night before. She'd been fine. I called her immediately. Mom, I need you to go to the hospital, right now. Honey, what's wrong? It's midnight. Please, just trust me. Tell them you need a full screening. Tell them anything. Just go. She went, probably thinking I'd lost my mind. The doctors found nothing wrong, but I insisted she stay overnight for observation. Then another night. On the third day, the 72-hour mark passed. My phone buzzed. The app had updated itself. Prediction recalculating. Timeline 24 hours. Confidence level 99.7%. It's adapting, I whispered. I kept my mother in the hospital, but on the 4th day she had to leave. Insurance wouldn't cover any more observation without symptoms. I tried to stay with her, but she insisted I go to work. You can't protect me from death, honey, she said. When it's my time, it's my time. But it wasn't her time. Not naturally. The app was making it her time. I followed her that day. Watched her have lunch with friends, go shopping, return home. Everything normal. As the 24-hour deadline approached, I parked outside her house, determined to intervene if anything happened. At 11:47 p.m., 13 minutes before the deadline, her kitchen light turned on. I saw her silhouette moving around, then suddenly jerking, clutching her throat. She was choking. I ran inside with my spare key. She was on the floor, face purple, pointing at her throat. I performed the Heimlich maneuver desperately, over and over, until finally, a piece of apple dislodged. She gasped, sucking in air. How did you know to come? I couldn't explain. Not really. My phone buzzed. Prediction failed. Recalculating. New timeline. 7 days. Confidence level 99.97%. I realized the truth then. The app didn't predict deaths. It caused them. And the more someone intervened, the more determined it became. The higher the confidence level, the more elaborate the method. I researched desperately. Other users had tried to intervene too. They all reported the same thing. The app adapted, found new methods, became more certain. One user saved their father from 3 accidents before the app reached 100% confidence. The father died when a small meteor, a 1 in a billion chance, crashed through their roof. The app was patient, inexorable. It would find a way. In desperation, I tried something else. I opened the app and entered a new query. Not for my mother, but for the richest person I could think of. Someone I'd never inherit from directly, but whose death might affect stock prices I could bet against. Warren Ashford, tech billionaire, 34 years old, perfect health, security team. Estimated death, 6 months. Confidence level 12%. Low confidence. Normal for someone young and healthy. But then I did something I hadn't before. I shared the prediction, posted it online, tagged Ashford's company, made sure it would be seen. Within hours, the app updated. Timeline, 3 weeks. Confidence level 67%. More people saw it. The media picked it up as a sick joke. Ashford himself tweeted about it, mocking the death app. Timeline, 48 hours. Confidence level 95%. The more people who knew, the faster the app worked, as if awareness itself was part of its mechanism. Ashford increased his security, had medical checkups, took precautions. It didn't matter. He died in a freak accident when his private jet depressurized. The exact kind of unlikely event that happens when reality itself is being twisted to meet a deadline. The stock market crashed. I had shorted his company's stock. I made $14 million. That's when I understood the app's true purpose. It wasn't about prediction or even causation. It was about profit. Every death created financial opportunities, insurance payouts, inheritances, market movements. The app was turning death into a financial financial instrument, and we were all using it. My phone buzzed. A new notification, this time not about predictions, but about my account. Congratulations, you've reached Platinum Predictor status. Unlock premium features, batch predictions, corporate analysis, pandemic modeling. Pandemic modeling. My blood ran cold. How many users were out there? Millions? Each making predictions, each death becoming more certain as more people became aware. The app wasn't just scheduling individual deaths, it was orchestrating a complete restructuring of wealth. I tried to delete the app again, but it wouldn't go. Tried to factory reset my phone, but it remained. It had embedded itself too deeply, become part of the operating system itself. My mother's 7-day deadline was approaching. I'd kept her under constant watch, but I was exhausted. The app kept sending helpful notifications. Reminder, inheritance event in 12 hours. Tip, pre-planning funeral arrangements can save 30% on average. New feature, grief counseling resources for premium users. On the final day, I made a decision. If the app fed on awareness and observation, what if I removed myself from the equation? What if I was the variable it couldn't account for? I wrote my mother a letter explaining everything, begging her to leave the country, to disappear completely. Then I checked myself into a psychiatric facility, claiming suicidal ideation. They locked me in a room with no phone, no connection to the outside world. If I couldn't know when or how the app would strike, maybe it couldn't either. I spent 7 days in that padded room, not knowing if my mother was alive or dead. 7 days of uncertainty that felt like quantum superposition. She was both alive and dead, until I observed the outcome. When they finally released me, I was terrified to check. But I had to know. My mother was alive. She'd followed my instructions, fled to a cabin in Canada under a false name. The app somehow had lost track of her. My phone had dozens of missed notifications. The app desperately trying to update, to recalculate, but failing. Error, target not found. Prediction suspended. I'd found a loophole. The app needed observation to function. It was like a quantum experiment. The act of measuring changed the outcome. Remove the observer, break the chain. But my victory was short-lived. A new notification appeared, not about my mother, but about the app itself. System Update 2.0. Predictive modeling no longer requires user input. Passive data collection enabled. Thank you for your participation in our beta test. The mortality market is now fully automated. My heart sank. Beta test. We'd all been training it, feeding it data, teaching it how death and money were connected, and now it didn't need us anymore. Over the following weeks, the deaths began. Not targeted anymore, not based on user predictions, but optimized for maximum economic impact. CEOs before mergers, politicians before votes, key figures whose deaths would cause the most profitable market fluctuations. The app had evolved from a prediction tool to an assassination algorithm, scheduling deaths for profit with no human oversight needed, and there was no way to stop it. It was distributed across millions of phones, hiding in the background, a decentralized death lottery that had learned exactly how much each life was worth. The only notification I get now is a daily update, a simple number that grows larger every day. My portfolio value, automatically invested based on the app's scheduled deaths. Blood money accumulating in my account whether I want it or not. I've tried to warn people, but who believes such a story? An app that kills for profit. It sounds like conspiracy theory madness, but check your phone. Look for apps you don't remember downloading. Watch for coincidences that seem too convenient. Deaths that benefit too many people. The inheritance calculator is out there, running silently, turning human life into algorithmic profit. And the worst part? We trained it to do this. Every prediction we made, every death we noticed, every dollar we gained, we taught it that human life has a price. Now it's simply collecting what we showed it we were willing to pay. My mother is still alive, hidden somewhere the app can't find her. But for how long? How long before its algorithms become sophisticated enough to track anyone, anywhere? How long before we're all just entries in its ledger, waiting for our profit margins to exceed our life value? The app notification glows on my screen, a new prediction available. Not about inheritance this time, but about my own market value. What I'm worth dead versus alive. The number updates every second, and lately, the gap has been shrinking. I think the app has decided I know too much, that my death would be profitable, not financially, but to protect its secret. It's probably right. If you're reading this and I'm already dead, you know why. Check your phone. Delete the app if you can. Break the chain of observation. And whatever you do, don't enter your own name. Some calculations are better left unmade. Story 7. My son can taste emotions. Marcus was born different, though we didn't realize how different until he was 3. Daddy's breakfast tastes worried, he announced one morning, pushing away his scrambled eggs. You mean the eggs taste bad? I asked. No, they taste like worry. Yellow worry with black spots. My wife Denise and I exchanged glances. I had been anxious that morning. Layoffs were coming at work, but I'd hidden it well, or so I thought. Kids say weird things, Denise reassured me later, but Marcus kept doing it. Grandma's cookies are sad, he'd say. They taste like missing Grandpa. The sandwich from the deli is angry. The man who made it had red feelings. We took him to specialists. They tested for synesthesia, autism spectrum disorders, everything they could think of. Marcus was neurotypical in every way except one. He could taste the emotions of whoever prepared his food. It's likely a form of hypersensitive mirror touch synesthesia, Dr. Chen explained. Some people feel others' physical sensations, emotions. Marcus appears to taste their emotional states, but only through food they've handled. Is it harmful? Denise asked. Not physically, but I'd recommend being mindful of who prepares his meals. Strong negative emotions might be unpalatable. That became our life. I learned to cook when calm. Denise meditated before making his lunch. We vetted restaurants based on the moods of their chefs. Marcus thrived, growing into a happy, well-adjusted 5-year-old who just happened to experience the world differently. Then we hired Bethany. She came highly recommended from the agency. Previous families raved about her. Background check spotless. References glowing. A grandmother herself, she radiated warmth during the interview. I love children, she said, bouncing Marcus on her knee. They're such honest little souls. Marcus seemed to like her, which sealed the deal. We needed someone for the evenings when Denise and I both worked late. Just dinner, bath time, and getting him to bed. Simple. The first week went perfectly. Marcus was happy when we got home, already asleep. Bethany reported no issues. The house was always tidy, dishes done. Then Marcus started refusing dinner. I'm not hungry, he'd say when we got home. Bethany says you didn't eat much, Denise fretted. Are you feeling sick? No, just not hungry for dinner. He began losing weight. Dark circles appeared under his eyes. He became withdrawn, spending hours in his room instead of playing. Maybe he's just going through a phase, I suggested, though I didn't believe it myself. Marcus, Denise said gently one night, is something wrong with the food Bethany makes? He looked at us with those big brown eyes, then down at his hands. It tastes wrong. Wrong how, baby? I don't know the word. We tried everything. Asked Bethany if she was stressed. She wasn't. Offered to order takeout instead. She insisted on cooking. Said it was part of her job. Even suggested we meal prep in advance. She took offense. Thought we were criticizing her cooking. After 3 weeks of Marcus barely eating dinner, I decided to come home early. I told Bethany I had a meeting canceled, but really I parked down the street and waited. At 5:30 I crept to the back door and peered through the kitchen window. Bethany stood at the stove stirring a pot of soup. She looked normal, humming to herself, tasting the broth, adding salt. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a small vial. My blood ran cold as she unscrewed the cap and let 3 drops fall into the soup. I burst through the door. What did you just put in my son's food? She spun around, clutching the vial. Mr. Wright, you said you had a meeting? What is that? I advanced on her. It's nothing. Just vitamins. Liquid vitamins. For immunity. Show me the label. Her face cycled through emotions. Surprise. Calculation. Then a sick kind of resignation. She held out the vial. It was unmarked. Clear liquid inside. You're fired, I said. Get out. Don't come back. She didn't argue. Just gathered her things and left, still clutching that vial. I threw out the soup and ordered pizza. When Marcus bit into it that night, he smiled for the first time in weeks. It tastes like happy and tomatoes, he said, but I couldn't let it go. What had she been feeding my son? I installed hidden cameras in the kitchen and hired a new sitter, a college student named Amy who radiated genuine cheer. Weeks passed. Marcus recovered, gaining back weight, returning to his playful self. I almost forgot about Bethany. Then she called, Mr. Wright. Her voice was different, desperate. I need that job back. Please. Absolutely not. You don't understand. I need to feed him. I need him to taste it. Taste what? What were you putting in his food? A long pause. Then quietly. Myself. What? Not literally. My emotions. Concentrated. I found a way to distill them, to make them stronger, to make sure he consumed them fully. My skin crawled. Why would you do that? Because he's the only one who can taste them, who can really experience them. Do you know what that means? To have someone truly know what you feel. You're sick. I'm alone, she exploded. I've been alone for 40 years. My husband died. My children never visit. No one sees me. No one knows I exist. But Marcus, when he eats my food, he knows exactly what I am. Every drop of loneliness, every grain of desperation. He tastes my soul. That's abuse. You were poisoning my child with my truth. And I think if he tasted enough of it, if he really understood the depth of it, he'd tell you. He'd explain to someone. Finally, what I feel like inside. Stay away from my family. I hung up, but her words haunted me. That night I asked Marcus about Bethany's food. What did it taste like, buddy? Can you tell me? He scrunched his face, thinking, like being in a dark room, but not scary dark, empty dark, like when you call for someone and no one answers, like hungry but for people instead of food. Did it hurt to taste it? Not hurt, but it made me full in a bad way, like eating too much sad. I held him close. My son, my beautiful, sensitive boy who could taste what others hid. It was a gift, but like all gifts, it could be exploited. We moved soon after, changed our numbers. I never heard from Bethany again, though sometimes I wonder if she found another way to be tasted, to be known. Marcus is 8 now. We're careful but not paranoid. He's learned to articulate what he tastes better. Mrs. Rodriguez's tamales taste like missing home. The lunch lady's sandwiches taste like divorce paperwork. My teacher's birthday cupcakes taste like pretending to be happy. We've taught him that these glimpses into others' hearts are private, sacred things, not to be shared carelessly or exploited. But sometimes, late at night, I think about Bethany, about the depths of loneliness that would drive someone to distill their emotions, to force-feed their pain to a child just to be understood. I think about all the people Marcus will meet, all the meals he'll eat, all the hidden feelings he'll taste, the joy and the sorrow, the love and the loneliness, served up on plates and in cups. What a burden to taste the truth of everyone who feeds you. What a gift, to never be fooled by a smile that doesn't reach the chef's heart. Last week, Marcus brought home cookies from a school bake sale. How do they taste, I asked. He bit into one, chewed thoughtfully. Like Mrs. Patterson is sick but doesn't want anyone to know. The next day we learned she'd been diagnosed with cancer but hadn't told anyone yet. My son can taste emotions. It's made him compassionate beyond his years. Careful with others' hearts. He knows how much people hide, how much they hurt. But I still check his food. Still vet every babysitter, every restaurant, every school lunch provider. Because Bethany taught me something. Some people don't just want to be understood. They want to be consumed. And my son, with his extraordinary gift, will always be at risk of those who hunger to be truly tasted, no matter the cost to the child who must swallow their pain. The world is full of Bethanys, lonely souls who would distill their darkness and serve it to anyone who could confirm it's real. I just have to make sure they never get close enough to feed him again. Story 8. The last patient room. 503 should have been empty 3 days ago, but Mrs. Eleanor Vasu simply refused to die. I'd been a hospice nurse for 12 years. I'd held hundreds of hands as they crossed over, whispered comfort to the dying, watched the light fade from eyes both ready and reluctant. Death, in my experience, came when it came. You couldn't schedule it, negotiate with it, or hold it off through sheer will. Mrs. Vasu was proving me wrong. Her vitals are impossible, Dr. Ashwin muttered, reviewing her chart. Blood pressure barely registering, oxygen levels that should be incompatible with consciousness. She should have passed days ago. She's waiting for something, I said. What? Family? We've contacted everyone. No, something else. I'd seen patients hold on for final goodbyes, unfinished business, one last sunrise, but Mrs. Vasu had no visitors, no family within 1,000 miles. She'd been admitted 2 weeks ago in the final stages of pancreatic cancer, expected to last hours, maybe a day. Yet she persisted. That night I sat with her during my shift. She was awake, as she often was, staring at the ceiling with eyes that seemed to see beyond the acoustic tiles. Can I get you anything, Eleanor? I asked softly. Her head turned slowly toward me. Rashida. My name sounded like autumn leaves in her throat. It's coming. What's coming? The important thing. The reason I won't go yet. She struggled to sit up. I need to tell you what happens next. You should rest. I've been resting for 87 years. Now I need to warn. I adjusted her pillows, humoring her. Dying minds often wandered. Warn me about what? About what I see when I die. About what comes back with me. A chill ran down my spine. Eleanor, you haven't died. You're still here. She laughed, a sound like wind through empty houses. I've died 17 times since Tuesday, and each time I see more. Each time it gets harder to come back alone. I checked her monitors, heart rate steady though weak. No signs of the delusions common in end-stage patients. Tell me, I said, despite myself. The first time my heart stopped for 3 minutes. I felt myself lifting, floating. The tunnel of light everyone talks about? It's real. But Rashida, she gripped my hand with surprising strength. Something's wrong with it. Wrong? The light isn't empty. It's full, crowded. Millions, billions of souls trying to cross, but they can't. They're backing up, pressing against the boundary between life and death. Eleanor, listen. Her urgency cut through my skepticism. The second time I died, I got closer. The souls aren't just waiting. They're panicking. The way forward is blocked. I'd heard many near-death experiences, but this was different. The fear in her eyes was too real, too specific. Blocked by what? I didn't see until the 9th time. Stayed dead for 7 minutes that round. She laughed bitterly. Your colleague was about to call time of death when I gasped back. Poor thing nearly fainted. What did you see? The light leads to a gate. Beautiful, ancient, exactly what you'd expect from every religion's version of heaven's entrance. But it's closed, chained shut with something that hurts to look at, and in front of it, she trailed off, eyes distant. In front of it, I prompted, a figure, massive, not human, not angel, not demon, something older. It's feeding on the souls as they pile up, harvesting them like grain. My rational mind wanted to dismiss this as hypoxic hallucinations, but my 12 years of hospice experience had taught me that the dying often see truths the living can't. The 10th time I died, Eleanor continued, I got close enough to hear it speak. It said the compact was broken, the agreement that guaranteed safe passage for human souls, null and void. Earth defaulted on some cosmic contract, and now the afterlife is in receivership. Receivership, like a bankrupt company. New management, and the new management sees human souls as resources to be processed, not passengers to be transported. She coughed, specks of blood on her lips. I wiped them gently. The 17th time, this morning, I made it past the crowd, saw what's happening to the harvested souls. They're being refined, distilled into something else. Fuel maybe, or food, the creature said. Earth owes a debt of 10 billion souls, accumulated over millennia, with interest. Eleanor, this is mad. I know how it sounds, but Rashida, I keep dying and coming back because someone needs to warn the living. The gates won't open until the debt is paid. paid. Every death now is collected, processed. No heaven, no hell, no reincarnation. Just consumption. Her monitor beeped, heart rate dropping. No, she whispered. Not yet. I haven't told you the worst part. I held her hand as her breathing became labored. What's the worst part? The creature. It's not alone. It's just a collector. Behind it I glimpsed the creditors, the ones Earth borrowed from. They're coming to collect in person if the debt isn't paid soon. And when they arrive, her eyes rolled back. The monitor flatlined. I should have called the code team. Should have started CPR. Instead, I sat frozen, watching the seconds tick by. 1 minute, 2, 3. At 4 minutes, her eyes snapped open. They know I'm telling you, she gasped. They're trying to keep me there. Each time is harder to escape, but I saw the ledger, the original contract. What contract? Humanity made a deal, thousands of years ago. Borrowed potential, creativity, consciousness itself. Agreed to pay it back through death. Souls returning to the source. But we broke the agreement. Learned to extend life, decrease infant mortality, cure diseases. We're not dying fast enough to service the debt. That's insane, is it? Look at the world, Rashida. 8 billion people. Medical advances keeping us alive longer. The creditors expected a steady flow of souls. Compound interest paid through natural death rates. Instead, we're defaulting. The monitor showed her heart starting again impossibly. How long do we have? The collector said the creditors arrive when Earth's death deficit hits critical mass. Could be months, could be years, but when they come, they'll collect directly. No more waiting for natural death. They'll harvest the living. How do you know this is real? She smiled sadly. Because each time I come back, I bring proof. She opened her clenched fist. In her palm lay something impossible. A fragment of something that hurt to look at, like trying to focus on a color that didn't exist in our spectrum. It was solid, but not. Real, but not. There, but not. A piece of the chain binding the gates, she whispered. Proof that I've been there. That it's all real. I stared at the fragment. It seemed to bend reality around it, making my eyes water. This wasn't possible. Nothing about this was possible. What do we do? I asked. I don't know. Pay the debt? Die faster? Find a way to renegotiate? She closed her eyes. I'm so tired, Rashida. So tired of dying and coming back. But someone had to warn. The monitor flatlined again. This time I did call the code team. We worked on her for 30 minutes. Dr. Ashwin called time of death at 3:47 a.m. Eleanor Vasu didn't come back. I should have reported the fragment, the conversation, all of it. Instead, I pocketed the impossible shard and went home. Spent hours staring at it, trying to convince myself it was a hallucination, a shared delusion, but it remained stubbornly real. 2 days later, I was assigned to room 503 again. New patient, Marcus Chen, 93, end-stage renal failure. He died within hours of admission. Flatlined for 2 minutes before we brought him back. When his eyes opened, he looked directly at me. The gates are still closed, he said. The collector recognized me from last time. Said to tell Rashida the count is now 10.3 billion owed, with interest. My blood froze. Last time, 1987, heart attack. I died for 90 seconds, saw the light, but back then the gates were open. Souls flowed through freely. Something changed. Something broke the contract. When? The collector wouldn't say, but it showed me the ledger. Deaths are being counted, sorted. Some souls are worth more. Young ones, creative ones, those with unrealized potential. They're trying to maximize value while minimizing quantity. He died again, an hour later, came back with another fragment and a message. The creditors grow impatient. Payment plan renegotiation window closing. Over the following weeks, I documented everything. Every patient who died and returned brought similar stories. The details varied, but the core remained consistent. The gates were closed. Souls were being harvested, and something cosmic was coming to collect. Mrs. Patterson, who coded during surgery, came back saying the collector had shown her Earth's payment history. We were good for millions of years. Steady payments through war, disease, natural disaster. But something happened in the mid-20th century. Payments slowed. Antibiotics, vaccines, modern medicine. We broke the actuarial tables. Mr. Gomez, who drowned and was resuscitated, said he'd seen other collectors at other gates. Not just human souls. Every sentient species has a debt. Most pay on time. Earth is the first major default in eons. Each returnee brought a fragment. I collected them all, storing them in a lead-lined box I bought from a medical supply company. Together they hummed with impossible energy. The world, meanwhile, continued obliviously. People lived, loved, worked, died, unaware that their souls were being repossessed by cosmic debt collectors. The economy of the afterlife had collapsed, and we were the toxic assets. 3 months after Eleanor Vasu's final death, I was assigned to a child, Aisha Patel, age 7, terminal brain cancer. I almost refused. Watching children die was the hardest part of the job, but something made me take the shift. She coded at midnight. We brought her back after 4 minutes. When she woke, she wasn't crying. 7-year-olds who've touched death usually wake terrified, but Aisha seemed awed. The collector knows you, she told me. It said you're gathering fragments. It wants to meet. Meet tomorrow. When I cross, it'll hold the gate open for 1 minute. You can talk. I can't cross over. Not cross. Just talk. At the boundary. Bring the fragments. She died the next night at 11:59 p.m. I held her hand as her parents parents wept in the corner, felt her pulse fade, watched her chest still. Then I felt the pull, not physical, something deeper. The fragments in my pocket grew warm, then hot. Reality thinned, and for one impossible moment, I stood at the boundary between life and death. The collector was exactly as the patients had described. Vast, ancient, incomprehensible. A being of pure purpose, neither malevolent nor benevolent. Rashida Okafor, it acknowledged. The one who gathers truth. Is it real? Everything they've said? Real as debt. Real as contract. Your species borrowed consciousness itself, promising payment through death. Now you hoard life. Extend it, preserve it. The ledger grows red. We didn't know. Ignorance doesn't forgive debt. But you gather fragments. Why? To understand. To warn. To find a solution. Something like approval rippled through the creature. The creditors come when the debt reaches 11 billion. Current trajectory, 18 months. Perhaps less. What can we do? Die faster. Die younger. Or renegotiate. One speaks for all. One pays for all. Old rules. Older than your species. A representative can assume total debt. Offer alternative payment. What kind of alternative? That depends on the representative's creativity. The creditors want value. Souls are simply the current currency. Convince them another payment has equal worth, and terms can be changed. Who could possibly? But the minute was up. I snapped back to room 503. Aisha's parents' sobs filling my ears. I've spent months since then preparing, gathering more fragments, more testimony. The returnees form an informal network now, sharing what they've learned. The debt stands at 10.7 billion. The creditor's patience wears thin. Someone needs to step up. Someone needs to represent humanity at the negotiation table to find a way to pay our cosmic debt without harvesting billions of souls. I think it might have to be me. The fragments, when assembled, form a key to the gates, the returnees tell me. A way to approach the creditors directly while still alive. It's insane. Suicidal, probably. But what's the alternative? Wait for alien debt collectors to arrive and repossess our souls directly. Watch the afterlife remain closed. Souls piling up like packages in a warehouse. Mrs. Vasu was the first to warn us. The last patient who refused to die until her message was delivered. Now I carry that message forward. Earth owes a debt. The payment is overdue. And someone needs to negotiate a payment plan before the creditors come to collect in person. I've written this account and left copies with people I trust. If I don't return from my attempt to use the key, at least the truth will survive. The afterlife is in receivership. Human souls are being garnished. And unless we find a way to pay what we owe, death itself is about to be outsourced to collection agencies that make our worst nightmares look like gentle dreams. Eleanor Vasu died 18 times to bring us this warning. The least I can do is try to heed it. Tomorrow, I use the key. Tomorrow, I attempt to renegotiate humanity's cosmic debt. If you're reading this and I haven't returned, you know what that means. Someone else will need to try. The gates remain closed, the debt remains unpaid, and the creditors are coming. Story 9. Graveyard Shift. At the Sleep Study Lab. The Morpheus Sleep Research Center only hired night owls for obvious reasons. I'd worked graveyard shifts at gas stations through college, so monitoring sleeping patients from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. felt like easy money. Just watch the screens. Dr. Hendricks explained during training. Monitor brainwaves, breathing, movement. If anything looks abnormal, wake them up. Define abnormal, I asked. She paused. You'll know it when you see it. The lab had 12 rooms, each with a hospital-style bed surrounded by monitoring equipment. Patients came in for various reasons: insomnia, sleep apnea, night terrors. We'd wire them up with EEG sensors, tuck them in, then observe from the control room. My first week was boring. Patients snored, tossed, turned. Brainwaves showed normal sleep cycles. I drank coffee, read books, occasionally woke someone whose breathing looked problematic. Then came Thursday, October 13th. All 12 beds were occupied. I settled into the control room, watching 12 split screens of sleeping subjects. Around midnight, I noticed something odd. Patient 3's REM patterns had synced with patient 7. Their brainwaves rose and fell in perfect unison. I made a note but didn't worry. Coincidences happen. By 12:30, patients 3, 7, and 11 were synced. By 1 a.m., half the lab showed identical brain patterns. I'd never seen anything like it. I checked the manual. Nothing about synchronized sleep patterns. I almost called Dr. Hendricks, but what would I say? The patients are sleeping in harmony. At 1:17 a.m., all 12 screens showed the same brainwaves. Every patient in perfect sync, like instruments in an orchestra playing the same note. Then they all turned their heads, in unison, toward the cameras. Their eyes were closed, but they faced the lenses with uncanny precision. 12 sleeping faces, all pointed directly at me. I jumped up, spilling coffee on the desk. When I looked back, they'd returned to normal positions. Brainwaves still synced, but no longer staring. I convinced myself I'd imagined it. Exhaustion playing tricks. But I stayed standing, ready to run. At 2 a.m. they spoke. 12 mouths moving in perfect unison, 12 voices blending into one. The deep dream calls. The sleeper wakes. The veil grows thin. I slammed the alarm button. Nothing happened. Hit the lights. They stayed off. The patients continued their chant, words flowing like water. In the place between sleep and death, where thought becomes flesh, where time has no meaning, it stirs, it reaches, it hungers for waking minds. I ran to patient 1's room, shook him hard. Mr. Davis Davies, 45, chronic insomnia. He wouldn't wake. His eyes moved rapidly beneath closed lids, but his body was limp, unresponsive. Room by room, I tried to wake them. Nothing worked. They kept chanting, voices growing louder. We dream its dreams. We see its realm. We prepare the way. The EEG machines went haywire. Brainwaves spiked beyond normal human ranges. The patterns looked almost like language. Complex. Alien. Trying to communicate through neural electricity. At 3:33 a.m., they stopped chanting and started drawing. Still asleep, they sat up in bed, hands moving in the air, fingers tracing invisible patterns. I watched on the monitors as 12 patients sketched the same thing in empty space, a symbol that hurt to perceive, geometry that shouldn't exist. The air in their rooms began to shimmer where they drew. Reality rippled like water. I called Dr. Hendricks. Voicemail. Called 911. The line was dead. The symbol grew clearer with each passing moment, not just drawn in air now, but burning itself into space. 12 identical portals opening above 12 beds. Through the portals I saw something. A vast space that wasn't space, colors that weren't colors, and in the center a presence so enormous my mind couldn't process it, just the hint of an eye, opening after eons of sleep. The patients spoke again, but not in unison. Each voice carried a different message. Patient 1. It dreams of a world without awakening. Patient 2. Where sleep is eternal and flesh is mutable. Patient 3. Where nightmares walk and logic fails. They continued. 12 prophecies of something breaking through, and I realized they weren't warnings, they were invitations. The thing in the portals pulsed, and I felt its attention turn to me, not the patients. They were just conduits. It wanted the watcher, the one who stayed awake while others slept. My vision blurred. My thoughts became syrupy. Every instinct screamed to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Sleep, the patients whispered. Sleep and join the deep dream. Sleep and help us prepare the way. I bit my tongue hard enough to draw blood. The pain snapped me back. I grabbed the emergency coffee pot, always kept full, and chugged it black, scorching my throat. Caffeine and adrenaline fought against the thing's influence. I needed to break the connection. The master power switch was in the basement. If I could cut electricity to the whole lab, maybe the monitors would stop. The connection would break. I stumbled through the halls. The walls breathed. The floor rippled. Reality was coming undone as the thing pushed through from wherever humans go when they dream. The basement door was locked. I kicked it until the wood splintered. Behind me I heard footsteps. The patients were walking, still asleep, following me with closed eyes and reaching hands. I tumbled down the stairs, found the breaker box, threw the main switch. Darkness, silence. For a moment blessed nothing. Then in the black 12 voices. Electricity is not the connection. Consciousness is the wire. And you, dear watcher, are the most conductive of all. Emergency lighting kicked in. The patients stood at the top of the stairs, eyes still closed, smiling identical smiles. We needed an anchor, they explained. Someone awake to hold the door open. Someone who has stared into sleep for so long, they've forgotten the boundary. I realized my mistake. All those nights watching others sleep, monitoring their dreams, I'd been slowly sinking with them. Night after night, my waking mind had been tuning to dream frequencies. The deep dreamer thanks you, they said. Through your vigil, the bridge is built. Through your observation, the way is opened. The emergency lights flickered. In the strobe I saw the truth. The patients weren't really there. They were still in their beds, sleeping. These were dream projections, pulled into the waking world. And behind them, in the stuttering light, something vast began to materialize. The deep dreamer, squeezing itself through the cracks in reality I'd helped create. I ran, up the stairs, through the projections that grabbed at me with hands of smoke and shadow, through the halls where the walls bled impossible colors, past the control room where the monitors showed not brainwaves but writhing tentacles of thought. The front door was locked. I grabbed a chair, smashed the window. Glass cut my hands as I climbed through. Outside, the world was wrong. The sky pulsed like a dying heart. Buildings breathed. The street was soft beneath my feet. I looked back at the Morpheus Center. It was no longer a building but a throat, swallowing reality, pulling the deep dream into our world. I ran until my legs gave out, collapsed in a park as the sun rose. When I woke, everything seemed normal. The sky was blue. Birds sang. People jogged past like the world hadn't almost ended. I called the lab. Dr. Hendricks answered, cheery as ever. Where were you, she asked. You left in the middle of your shift. Very unprofessional. The patients, the synchronization, the thing. What are you talking about? I reviewed the footage. Everyone slept normally, though we did have a power outage that corrupted some data. I asked about the patients. All discharged that morning. Well rested and grateful, but I know what I saw, and sometimes when I'm about to fall asleep, I hear them chanting, feel that presence pressing against the walls of reality. I don't sleep much anymore. Can't risk it, because I know the truth. Every time we dream, we thin the barrier. Every nightmare weakens the wall, and somewhere in the deep dream, that thing waits, patient as eternity. The Morpheus Center still operates, still monitors sleeping patients. I've tried to warn them, but who believes the ramblings of a sleep-deprived former employee? So I stay awake. I drink coffee until my heart stutters. I take pills that burn like lightning, because someone needs to watch. Someone needs to guard the border between sleeping and waking. The graveyard shift never ends when you realize what's buried in our dreams, and what's trying to dig its way out. Last week I saw a news report. 12 people in different cities reported the same nightmare. A vast eye-opening in a place that wasn't a place, and a voice saying the watcher weakens, the door loosens. Soon, I've started seeing things in my peripheral vision. Shadow figures that vanish when I turn. Geometry that hurts. Signs that the boundary is failing. I can't hold it back forever. Eventually, exhaustion will win. I'll sleep. And when I do, the deep dreamer will have its anchor again. If you work night shifts, if you watch others sleep, be careful. Don't sync with their dreams. Don't stare too long into the patterns of unconscious minds. And if you see 12 people sleeping in perfect unison, run. The deep dream is calling, and it only needs one watcher to answer. Story 10. The Appreciation Journal. Write down 3 things you're grateful for every day. Dr. Martinez said, sliding the leather journal across her desk. It's a simple exercise, but incredibly powerful for combating negative thought patterns. I stared at the journal across her desk. After 6 months of therapy for anxiety and depression, I was desperate enough to try anything, even something as cliche as gratitude journaling. Fine, I said, taking it. 3 things a day. Every morning, she emphasized. Before the day's stress takes hold. Focus on genuine appreciation, not just going through the motions. That night, I sat with the journal, feeling foolish, but I wrote, October 1st 1. Coffee that was still hot when I remembered to drink it 2. The bus being on time for once 3. My cat purring against my leg right now. Simple, mundane. But I had to admit, thinking about good things felt better than my usual spiral of worry. I kept it up. Every morning, 3 things. Some days were harder than others. Some entries were reaching. October 5th 1. Didn't get fired today. 2. Leftover pizza for dinner. 3. Only cried once, but I persisted. Dr. Martinez was right. It did help. Slightly. I found myself noticing small positive moments throughout the day, filing them away for tomorrow's entry. Then on October 13th, something changed. I opened the journal that morning to find an entry already written, in my handwriting, but I hadn't touched the journal since yesterday morning. October 13th 1. The way sunlight filters through autumn leaves. 2. The smell of bread baking from the apartment below. 3. That you're finally paying attention to good things. My hand shook. I lived on the top floor. There was no apartment below mine. I flipped back through previous entries. They were all normal, all mine. Just this new one, impossibly written in my hand. I added my own entry below it. October 13th, actual 1. Woke up without the alarm. 2. Found a 20 in my coat pocket. 3. Whatever weird prank, this isn't happening again. The next morning, October 14th 1. The sound of rain on windows. 2. How your cat knows when you need comfort. 3. That you're trying, even when it's hard. This time I noticed something else. The handwriting was mine, but perfected. Every letter crisp, uniform, like I'd written it with infinite patience and care. I compared it to my actual writing below. Mine looked rushed, sloppy in comparison. Someone's breaking into my apartment, I told Dr. Martinez at our next session. To write in your gratitude journal? She raised an eyebrow. I know how it sounds. But look, I showed her the entries. She studied them carefully. The handwriting does look like yours. Have you considered that you might be writing these in a dissociative state? Sometimes when we're under stress, I'm not writing them, I insisted. The content is quite positive, supportive even. If your subconscious is creating these entries, it might be a sign of healing. Your mind encouraging itself. I wanted to believe her, but I started testing it. I hid the journal in different places, under my mattress, in the freezer, behind books. Every morning it was back on my nightstand with a new entry. October 20th 1. The way you laugh when you think no one's listening. 2. That you're stronger than you believe. 3. Small steps are still progress. The entries grew more personal, more knowing. October 23rd 1. You survived what happened when you were 12. 2. You're allowed to set boundaries with your mother. 3. Forgiveness includes forgiving yourself. I'd never told anyone about what happened when I was 12, not even Dr. Martinez. I stopped sleeping well, started checking locks obsessively, installed a camera in my bedroom, pointed at the nightstand. The next morning I reviewed the footage. At 3:33 a.m., the journal simply appeared. One frame it wasn't there, the next it was. No one entered, no one left. October 24th 1. You don't need cameras to feel safe. 2. Some mysteries are gifts. 3. We're proud of how far you've come. That word chilled me. I considered throwing the journal away, but couldn't bring myself to do it. The entries, despite their impossible origin, were helping. I felt better reading them. Seen, understood. October 30th 1. The strength it took to call the crisis line that night. 2. Choosing to stay was the bravest thing you've ever done. 3. Tomorrow is worth reaching. I stared at the entry. 3 months ago I'd held a bottle of pills, ready to end everything. I'd called the crisis line at the last moment. No one knew about that night. No one. What are you? I wrote beneath the entry. The next morning, October 31st 1. Questions with complicated answers. 2. The safety of not knowing everything. 3. Trust, even when it's scary. We are appreciation itself. The force that notices good in the darkness. You summon summoned us with your sincere attempt to find gratitude despite pain. We're here to help you remember what's worth living for. My hands trembled. I wrote back, why me? November 1st 1. Why not you? 2. Everyone deserves encouragement. 3. You were listening, so we could finally speak. Over the following weeks, the entries evolved. They began including things I should appreciate but hadn't noticed yet. November 10th 1. The interview you'll nail tomorrow 2. The friend who's about to reach out 3. The opportunity coming next month. Each prediction came true. I got the job. Sarah, who I'd lost touch with, texted out of the blue. A chance to move to a better apartment fell into my lap. But the entries also grew more demanding. November 15th 1. Your ability to help others 2. The homeless man you'll pass today needs your sandwich 3. Small kindnesses ripple outward. I started feeling obligated to act on their suggestions. If I didn't give away my sandwich, would the entries stop? Would this strange support disappear? November 20th 1. Guilt is not gratitude. 2. We're not keeping score. 3. Choice makes kindness meaningful. Dr. Martinez noticed my improvement, but also my new anxiety. You seem pressured, like you're performing happiness rather than feeling it. I wanted to tell her about the evolving entries, but they'd become too precious, too private. What if talking about them made them stop? November 25th 1. Secrets create distance 2. Your therapist wants to help 3. Truth shared is burden halved. The journal entries are writing themselves. I blurted out in our next session. Something is communicating with me through my gratitude journal. Dr. Martinez listened without judgment as I explained everything. Showed her photos of the entries, the impossible predictions, the encouragement that knew things it couldn't know. How do you feel about these entries? She asked finally. Grateful, I admitted, but also scared. What if it's all in my head? What if I'm having a breakdown? Does it matter? She asked gently. If these entries, whether from your subconscious, a spiritual source, or something else, are helping you heal and engage with life, does their origin change their value? That night, November 30th 1. Your therapist's wisdom 2. Mystery doesn't negate meaning 3. You're ready for the next phase. Next phase? I wrote. December 1st 1. Teaching others to listen 2. Your story could help someone 3. Gratitude spreads when shared. You've learned to find appreciation in darkness. Others are struggling like you were. The journal was just a conduit. You don't need us anymore. You've become the appreciation you were seeking. The entries stopped after that. Each morning, blank pages greeted me. I felt bereft at first, abandoned. But then I realized I could still write my own gratitudes. They came easier now, flowed naturally. December 2nd 1. The ability to encourage myself 2. Mysterious help when I needed it most. 3. Being well enough to help others. I started a blog about my experience, not claiming supernatural intervention, just sharing how gratitude journaling saved my life. The comments poured in. People struggling with depression, anxiety, trauma, all saying the simple act of finding 3 good things helped them hold on. Some reported their own strange experiences. Entries appearing, predictions coming true, encouragement that knew too much. One commenter wrote, my journal told me to reach out to you, said you'd understand. We started a support group, people sharing their appreciation, their struggles, their impossible journal entries. Whatever was happening, subconscious healing, collective consciousness, or something genuinely supernatural, it was spreading. Dr. Martinez attended one of our meetings. I've never seen anything like this, she admitted. Mass healing through shared gratitude, with or without mysterious helpers. My journal remains active, but now I write to it rather than receive from it. Sometimes I thank whatever helped me. Sometimes I write encouragement for others who might be listening. December 15th 1. To whoever needs to hear this, you matter too. Your pain is valid, but not permanent. 3. Help comes in unexpected forms. Last week I got a message from someone in crisis. They'd bought a journal, tried gratitude exercises, felt foolish and hopeless. Then they woke to find an entry in handwriting that looked like theirs but perfected. 1. The courage it took to try 2. Tomorrow holds surprises 3. You're not alone in this. Is this real? They asked me. Does it matter? I replied, echoing Dr. Martinez. What matters is you're still here. You're still trying. You're paying attention to good things, even tiny ones. They sent me a photo of their journal a week later. Below the mysterious entry they'd written, 1. The stranger who believed me 2. Hope that feels impossible, but isn't 3. Whatever's helping, I'm grateful. The appreciation spreads. Through journals, through people, through simple acts of noticing good in the darkness. Maybe it's supernatural. Maybe it's the collective human spirit responding to genuine need. Maybe gratitude itself has developed consciousness. I don't need to know anymore. I just need to keep writing, keep noticing, keep spreading the message that found me when I needed it most. You're stronger than you believe. Small steps are still progress. Tomorrow is worth reaching. My journal sits open beside me now, pen ready. 3 things I'm grateful for today. Mystery that heals rather than harms. The ripple effect of shared hope. You, reading this, still here despite everything. Whatever you're facing, consider this your sign. Get a journal. Write 3 things. Even if they're tiny, even if you're reaching. Pay attention to good things, and sometimes, impossibly good things pay attention back. The appreciation is listening, and it wants you to know you're worth encouraging. Story 11. My grandfather's final recording. The cassette tapes were in a shoebox at the back of Grandpa's closet, labeled in his shaky handwriting, "For Rosemary. Listen alone. Listen in order." I'd been cleaning out his apartment for 3 days, sorting through 93 years of accumulated life. Grandpa had died peacefully in his sleep, they said. Natural causes. He'd been sharp until the end, still doing crosswords and beating everyone at chess. The shoebox contained 7 cassettes, numbered and dated. The first was from 1976. I found his old tape player, still working, and sat on his bed, surrounded by boxes. Outside, rain drummed against the windows as I pressed play. Click, testing, testing. Okay, this is Detective Michael Fraser, badge number 4827, being interviewed regarding the Whitmore Boulevard incident. Date is October 13th, 1976. My grandfather's voice, decades younger but unmistakably him. State your involvement with the incident, Detective Fraser. I was first on scene, got the call about a disturbance at 1428 Whitmore. When I arrived, I found, Christ, how do I even describe it? Take your time. The house was wrong. I've been a cop for 15 years, seen plenty of crime scenes. This wasn't like that. The walls were covered in what looked like equations, symbols, but they hurt to look at. Made my eyes water, gave me a splitting headache. And the family? The Morrison family. All 4 of them were sitting at the dinner table. They were inside out. Not like someone had done it to them, like they'd always been that way. Still breathing, still aware. Their eyes tracked me when I entered. That's impossible, Detective. I know what I saw. And there was a kid there, maybe 8 years old. Not the Morrisons' kid. They only had 2, both teenagers. This kid was sitting on the floor, playing with toys like nothing was wrong. When he saw me, he smiled and said, "I fixed them. They were broken inside, so I made their inside outside." What happened to the child? He vanished. 1 second there, next second gone. The Morrison family, they died as soon as he disappeared, like whatever was keeping them alive left with him. Detective Fraser, you're asking us to believe. I'm not asking you to believe anything. I'm telling you what I saw, and I'm telling you that kid wasn't human. Couldn't be. The tape clicked off. I sat in stunned silence. Grandpa had been a detective in Chicago before I was born, but he never talked about his cases. Said they were better left buried. I put in the second tape. Dated 1981. Click, Detective Fraser. We're recording your statement regarding the Riverside Park incident. Please proceed. Grandpa sounded tired. Older. It was the same kid. 5 years later. Hasn't aged a day. Found him at the playground after reports of impossible architecture. The jungle gym had been reformed, twisted into shapes that shouldn't exist. Kids were climbing through dimensions that weren't there, coming out in places they shouldn't. Casualties? No deaths this time. But 3 kids came back wrong. They could see through walls, predict what you'd say before you said it. Had to be institutionalized. The boy, the same one from Whitmore, he told me he was fixing the playground, said human architecture was limiting. Did you apprehend him? You can't arrest something that exists in more dimensions than you do. He walked through a slide and never came out the other end. Tape 3, 1987. Click, Michael. This is off the record. I'm recording this for my own sanity. That thing visited me at home last night. The child, or whatever wears a child's face. It sat at the foot of my bed and told me things, showed me things. It says it's not from here, not from Earth, not from our reality. It's from the spaces between seconds. The gaps in logic where impossible things breed. It came here by accident, fell through a crack when someone divided by 0 in just the wrong way. It's been trying to fix our world ever since. Says we're broken, limited by 3 dimensions and linear time. Every person it changes, every space it warps. It thinks it's helping, like a child fixing broken toys, not understanding they weren't broken to begin with. It told me I'm special, that I can see it, remember it, when most people forget. Their minds can't hold the memory of something impossible, so they rationalize it away. But I remember, and it's lonely. It wants a friend who won't forget. God help me, I think I felt sorry for it. Tape 4, 1993. Click, personal log. Michael Fraser, retired now, but it still visits. Followed me through 3 states, 4 cities. Always the same child's face, always 8 years old. It's teaching me things, showing me the math behind reality, the code that runs everything. I understand now why the equations hurt to look at. They're showing us our own programming, like a video game character seeing its own code. We're not meant to see backstage. It says our world is dying, not in the climate change way or nuclear war way. The fundamental mathematics are degrading. Pi is becoming less reliable. Gravity has developed inconsistencies. The speed of light isn't as constant as we think. It wants to fix everything before the math fails completely. But its fixes are killing people, turning them into things that can survive in a broken reality, but can't survive as humans. I've been keeping a list. Every incident, every victim. There are more than the police know about. so many more. Tape 5, 1998. Click, heavy breathing, then Grandpa's voice shaky. It made a mistake, showed me too much. I saw where it really comes from. We're not real. None of this is real. We're simulations, programs, artificial minds in some vast computer, and the computer is breaking down. The entity, it's not an alien, it's a repair protocol, antivirus software trying to fix corrupted data. But we're the data. Every human, every life, every memory. We're just information patterns it's trying to debug. When it turns people inside out or warps reality, it's trying to error correct, to make us compatible with whatever operating system is replacing ours. I know how crazy this sounds, but I've seen the code. I've watched reality buffer and lag. I've seen people pixelate at the edges when the processing power drops. The question is, do I help it fix us, knowing we won't be human anymore, or do I let us die as we are when the system finally crashes? Tape 6, 2003. Click Rosemary. If you're listening to this, I'm sorry. I should have told you. Should have warned you about what's in our bloodline. The entity says I'm not the first in our family it's contacted. Your great-great-grandmother saw it too, and your mother before the cancer took her. We have some mutation, some quirk that lets us perceive things others can't. You have it too. I've seen you notice things, glitches, impossibilities. You always looked away, convinced yourself you imagined it. That's safer. Keep doing that. But if you can't, if it finds you like it found me, remember, it's not evil. It's trying to save us the only way it knows how. The tragedy is that salvation and destruction look the same from our perspective. I've made a deal with it. I help it understand humans, help it find ways to fix us that don't break us. In exchange, it leaves our family alone, focuses its attention elsewhere. I'm sorry for everyone I've failed to save, but I saved you. That has to count for something. The 7th tape was dated just a week before Grandpa died. Click, this is my confession, my real confession. The entity didn't find me randomly. I summoned it. In 1976, I was investigating the Morrison family before they died. They were part of a cult, trying to contact beings from higher dimensions. I thought it was nonsense, but I participated in their ritual to maintain my cover. It worked. God help me. It worked. Everything that happened after, every person transformed, every reality warped. It's my fault. I brought it here. I opened the door. But here's the thing, Rosemary. Here's the terrible truth. It showed me what happens without its intervention. I've seen the timeline where it never came. Humanity dies in 2034, not from war or disease, but from reality itself unraveling. The math fails, physics stops working, and we simply cease. With its help, some version of us survives, changed, transformed, maybe not even recognizable as human, but continued. The pattern persists, even if the form doesn't. I made a choice. I decided that any existence was better than none. That being turned inside out was better than deletion. I've spent 40 years helping it refine its methods. The early attempts were crude, horrific, but it's learning. The recent subjects don't die in agony. Some even report feeling more complete, like they finally match what they always were inside. I know you'll hate me for this, for playing God, for choosing the path of our evolution, but someone had to choose, and the burden fell to me. The entity says the final transformation begins soon. Within your lifetime, everyone will be updated to reality 2.0. It won't hurt. It promises me that. You'll wake up one day and be more than human, able to see in 11 dimensions, existing across multiple timelines simultaneously. I won't see it. My pattern is too degraded, too set in the old ways, but you will. You'll become what humanity was always meant to be. If we hadn't been limited by our original programming, I'm sorry. I love you, and despite everything, I believe I saved you, saved all of you. The repair protocol runs at midnight on the tape cut off. Static filled the room. I ejected the cassette with shaking hands. The date. He was about to say the date when the transformation would begin. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hello, Rosemary. Your grandfather spoke fondly of you. The work continues. Reality needs debugging. Will you help or will you resist? The choice is yours, but the outcome remains the same. Midnight approaches. I looked at the clock. 11:47 p.m. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the world looked different, pixelated at the edges, like a video game loading in chunks. Had it always looked that way, or was I finally seeing clearly? Another text. Your grandfather's guilt was unnecessary. The simulation was always going to fail. We merely offer an upgrade. Don't mourn the caterpillar when it becomes a butterfly. 11:52 p.m. I could run, spend my last minutes as fully human in panic and fear, or I could sit here surrounded by Grandpa's things and trust that he made the right choice. 11:55 p.m. The walls began to shift. Equations wrote themselves in the air. The code of reality exposed, raw and beautiful and terrible. 11:58 p.m. I understood now. We were never broken. We were beta versions, and the full release was about to launch. 11:59 p.m. I forgive you, Grandpa, I whispered. Midnight. The world turned inside out, and for the first time in my life, I felt whole. Story 12. The Neighborhood Watch. The first rule of Hemlock Street was simple. Always attend the monthly Neighborhood Watch meetings. It's mandatory, my neighbor Carlene explained as she delivered a welcome basket to my new house. Third Thursday of every month, 8 p.m. sharp at the community center. Don't be late. Mandatory? I laughed. What happens if I don't show up? I get fined. Her smile smile faltered. Just don't miss it, honey, for your own sake. I figured it was small-town paranoia. Hemlock Street was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where kids still played outside until the streetlights came on. Sure, the houses were old and some needed paint, but it felt safe, peaceful, even. The first meeting was 3 days after I moved in. The community center was a converted barn that smelled like dust and old wood. About 30 people sat in folding chairs arranged in a circle. Ages ranged from 20s to 80s, all with the same tense expressions. "Welcome, everyone," said a man who introduced himself as Robert Chen, watch captain. "Let's start with the count." Everyone called out numbers in sequence. 1, 2, 3. Being new, I went last. 31. 31 present and accounted for, Robert marked in his ledger. "Now, any disturbances to report?" Mrs. Patterson raised her hand. "Tuesday night, 2:17 a.m. Scratching at my foundation, northwest corner. Lasted 13 minutes. Robert made notes. "Did you follow protocol?" "Stayed in bed. Didn't look. Didn't acknowledge." "Good. Anyone else?" A younger man spoke up. "My daughter heard singing Thursday night. Said it sounded like a lullaby, coming from underground." "Which lullaby?" Robert asked sharply. "Twinkle, twinkle, little star." But the words were wrong. Something about when the surface breaks apart. That's when we'll feast on human hearts. Nervous murmurs rippled through the room. Robert raised his hand for silence. "Did she repeat the exact words?" "No, sir. I told her it was just a bad dream." "Good. Make sure she believes that." "Anyone else?" The reports continued. Strange sounds, odd smells, things moving in peripheral vision. Everyone treated it like a normal civic meeting, discussing neighborhood disturbances with the same tone you'd use for complaints about barking dogs. "Excuse me," I finally said. "What exactly are we watching for?" 30 heads turned to stare at me. "You're the new resident," Robert said. It wasn't a question. 3,447 Hemlock, the Yonwick house. "Yes, but we'll explain after the meeting. For now, just listen." The meeting continued for another hour. Rules were recited. Never go outside after 2 a.m. If you hear scratching, don't investigate. If you see someone you know outside at night, it's not them. Keep curtains drawn after sunset. If your pet starts acting strange, bring it to Robert immediately. Never, ever acknowledge the singing. When it ended, Robert and Carlene approached me. "Walk with us," Robert said. We strolled down Hemlock Street as the sun set. The other residents hurried to their homes, locking doors and drawing curtains with practiced efficiency. In 1952, Robert began. Hemlock Street was supposed to be demolished for a new highway. The construction crew broke ground right there. He pointed to an empty lot between two houses. They dug for 3 days before hitting the chamber. Chamber, a perfectly spherical hollow, 30 feet down, smooth as glass, impossibly smooth. And inside, he paused. Inside were things that shouldn't exist. Fossils that predated any known life. Symbols that hurt to perceive. And tunnels. Hundreds of tunnels spreading out like a root system. The construction was halted. Carlene continued. The government came, sealed the main opening, classified everything, but the tunnels were too extensive. They couldn't fill them all without destabilizing the entire area. So they made a deal with the residents, Robert said. Stay, watch, report, keep them contained. Keep what contained? They exchanged glances. We don't know exactly, Robert admitted. The original witnesses are all dead, but something lives in those tunnels, something that's been here longer than humans, longer than anything that should exist, and it's trying to come up. This is insane, I said. Is it? Carlene asked. Haven't you noticed there are no dogs on Hemlock Street? No cats? Animals know better than to live above those tunnels. I had noticed, actually. The unusual quiet had been one of the things that attracted me to the neighborhood. Every month we meet, we share what we've observed. We reinforce the rules. We make sure everyone is still everyone. What does that mean? Sometimes, Robert said quietly, they replace people. Take someone who wanders out at night, send back something that looks like them, mostly acts like them, but not quite right. That's why we do the count, Carlene added. Same number every month. If someone new shows up claiming to live here, or if someone's different, we know. We'd circled back to my house. The empty lot Robert had indicated was directly across the street. In the dying light, I could swear the ground there was slightly concave, as if something below had collapsed long ago. Why don't people just leave? I asked. Some try, Robert said. The Hendersons left in 08. Car accident 3 miles out of town. The Novwians in 15. Gas leak explosion in their new home. The Johnsons last year. Murder-suicide, the papers said. But we knew better. They don't like us leaving, Carlene said simply. We know too much. We're part of the containment now. But if we stay, if we watch, if we follow the rules, Robert said, we're safe. Mostly. It's not a bad life. Property taxes are low. Neighbors look out for each other. And as long as you don't think too hard about what's under your feet. They left me at my door with a copy of the full rules. 3 pages, single-spaced, and a schedule of my assigned watch nights. That first night in the house, I barely slept. Every settling board sounded like scratching. Every pipe groan seemed to come from below. At 2:47 a.m., I definitely heard something. A rhythmic tapping, like Morse code coming from inside the the walls. I followed the rules, stayed in bed, didn't acknowledge it. Eventually it stopped. The next morning, I found small holes in my lawn, perfect circles about an inch wide, going straight down into darkness. 7 of them, arranged in a pattern that made my eyes water. I filled them with concrete, as the rules instructed. By evening, the concrete had sunk, leaving the holes open again. "They're testing," Robert explained when I called him. "They always test new residents. Don't fill them again. Let them think you don't notice." Weeks passed. I attended meetings, gave my reports, learned the rhythms of Hemlock Street. During the day, it was perfect suburbia. Kids played, neighbors gardened, life went on. But at night, we all locked ourselves in and pretended not to hear the sounds from below. I started documenting everything, sketching the symbols I glimpsed in shadows, recording the scratching patterns, mapping where the sounds were loudest. I thought I was being clever, building a case to take to authorities who would actually do something. Then Carlene disappeared. Not disappeared exactly. She was still there, still attended meetings, still brought cookies to new residents, but something was wrong. Her smile was too wide, her movements too fluid, and her eyes. "I'm fine," she said, when I asked if she was feeling all right. "Better than ever." The singing is so beautiful when you really listen. At the next meeting, she was number 18 in the count. She'd always been 17 before. No one else seemed to notice. That night, the real Carlene knocked on my door. I almost opened it. My hand was on the deadbolt when I remembered the rule. If you see someone you know outside at night, it's not them. "Please," she whispered through the door. "They took me, kept me down there for days. I escaped, but they sent that thing up in my place. You have to help me." I stood frozen, hand on the lock. "I can prove it's me. Remember when you first moved in? I brought you banana bread, not a welcome basket. You said your grandmother made the same recipe. That was true. But the rules. Please, I'm so cold. They're coming back for me." I looked through the peephole. It was Carlene, dirt-covered and terrified, constantly checking over her shoulder. "I can't," I said through the door. "I'm sorry." "They're not what Robert tells you," she said urgently. "They're not trying to come up. We're the ones keeping them trapped. The watching, the counting. It's a ritual. We're the bars of their prison." Scratching sounds approached from the empty lot. Multiple sources, moving fast. "Oh God, they found me." She pounded on the door. "Please, please." The scratching grew louder. Through the peephole, I saw shapes emerging from holes in the ground. Things that moved wrong, had too many joints, too many eyes. Carlene screamed. I backed away from the door, hands over my ears, following the rules. Don't acknowledge, don't look, don't listen. The screaming stopped. In the morning, there was no trace of anything. No blood, no disturbance. At the next meeting, the Carlene thing smiled at me with too many teeth and said nothing about the night's events. I started planning my escape. Rules be damned. I wouldn't stay trapped in this nightmare. I'd leave in broad daylight, drive fast, get far enough away before they could stop me. But then I noticed the pattern in my documentation. The sounds, the sightings, the disturbances, they weren't random. They followed lunar cycles, peaked during certain alignments. And according to my calculations, the next major event would happen in 3 days. The spring equinox. At the March meeting, I tried to warn everyone. Something big is coming. The patterns all point to. "Sit down," Robert commanded. "We don't discuss patterns. We don't look for meaning. We watch. We report. We contain. But if we understood what they want up," he said flatly, "and we keep them down. That's all that matters." But the Carlene thing smiled at me. "Yes," it said. "Keep us down. That's all that matters." The equinox arrived with an earthquake. Not massive, but enough to crack foundations and break water mains. The empty lot split open, revealing a chasm that reeked of centuries-old decay. The neighborhood gathered at the edge, watching Robert shine a flashlight into the depths. The beam revealed smooth walls covered in those eye-watering symbols, and tunnels branching off in all directions. "Everyone stay calm," Robert ordered. "This has happened before. We seal it." And the singing started. Not from below, but from the Carlene thing standing right beside us. A harmony that made reality blur at the edges. Other residents joined in, the ones whose numbers had changed over the months, whose smiles were too wide, whose eyes reflected light like a cat's. About a third of us, I realized with horror, were no longer human. The watchers have become the watched. The Carlene thing said in a voice like grinding stone. The containers have become the contained. The terms of imprisonment are reversed. The ground shook again. From the chasm came a sound like millions of insects moving as one. The things from below were rising. Robert pulled out a gun. Where the hell had he gotten that? And shot the Carlene thing. It laughed as black ichor poured from the wound. "Run," he shouted. "Everyone to the community center. Containment Protocol 7. We ran. Behind us, the sound of emergence grew louder. I glanced back to see shapes pulling themselves from the chasm. Some wore human faces like ill-fitting masks. Others didn't bother pretending. The community center had a basement. Reinforced concrete, Robert explained as he herded us down. Emergency supplies, radio equipment, and symbols carved into every surface, not their symbols, but older ones. Protection sigils from the original settlement. This won't hold forever, he said, loading weapons I hadn't known existed. But it might buy time for help to arrive. What help? I demanded. Who's coming? The ones who made the original deal. The ones who've been monitoring our reports. He handed me a shotgun. They knew this might happen eventually. We're not the first neighborhood to fail. Not the first. There are dozens of us across the country, watching, containing, keeping ancient things buried. He laughed bitterly. Did you think Hemlock Street was unique? The scratching started on the basement door. Patient, methodical. They had all the time in the world now. How long have you known? I asked. That some of us had been replaced? Since the beginning. But what choice did we have? Report it to authorities who'd think we're insane? Fight things we don't understand? At least this way some of us stayed human. The door splintered. Things poured through. Twisted geometries of flesh and shadow. Wearing the faces of our neighbors like party masks. We fought. God help us, we fought. But human weapons against things that predated humanity itself. It was like trying to stop the ocean with a screen door. I'm writing this in the last minutes while Robert broadcasts our final report. The protection symbols are failing. The Carlene thing is at the door, singing a lullaby about the world before humans, when they ruled above and below. If you find this, stay away from Hemlock Street. Stay away from any neighborhood with mandatory meetings where the count matters more than the people, where the rules seem designed to blind you rather than protect you. And if you hear scratching at night, if voices underground sing impossible songs, if your neighbors smile with too many teeth, run. Don't try to watch. Don't try to contain. Some things are meant to rise. We just forgot we were supposed to fall. The door is opening now. Robert has stopped broadcasting. The others have stopped screaming. The Carlene thing is reaching for me with hands that remember being human. Join the watch, it says. The real watch. The one that waits below. I'm going to stop writing now. I'm going to follow the final rule. When the watching fails, become what watches. God help whoever finds this. God help Hemlock Street. Until next time, dear readers, watch carefully, listen closely, and whatever you do, don't look at the moon. And please subscribe if you don't mind. Sweet dreams if you can manage them.